Chapter 1:22. From the point of view of water attribute giant beasts, the deep-sea nether snake was born as a superior ferocious beast. It had a pivotal position in the entire ferocious beast world, especially in the sea, where even divine beasts could not compete with it. If there was no water Kirin among the divine beasts, then the deep-sea nether snake would be the real overlord of the sea. As the White Lady of the Flood Dragon, she was only a middle-level divine beast when she was born. Only after the creation's network had cultivated to the realm of dragon transformation could she enter the category of superior divine beasts. Her rank was lower than the deep-sea nether snake. The White Lady knew very well that Kirin could only have 3 messengers. Generally speaking, Kirin would choose a powerful superior divine beast from among the divine beasts to be his messenger. From the point of view of a middle-level divine beast, she originally had no chance of becoming Kirin's messenger. The deep-sea nether snake encouraged, "White Lady, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Chi-Yu is not only Ink Kirin, but also the unprecedented Ink Kirin of the 4 auspicious clouds. He will definitely become the strongest among the divine beasts in the future." At the same time, he also ate the reincarnation fruit. He absorbed the energy of the origin of nature. As long as you can become his messenger, under the transformation of the energy of the origin of nature, you may not need to cultivate to the realm of 10,000 years, but your rank can also be promoted to the upper level, and your strength will no longer be restricted by water. You can't let go of such an opportunity. What's more, if you also become Chi-Yu's messenger, won't we be together forever? It was impossible to say that the White Lady was not tempted. As long as she became Kirin's messenger, no matter how strong she was, she would be recognized by the divine beast. She would directly become a superior divine beast. With Kirin's protection, she would definitely be able to cultivate better. Although it was not long before she reached the realm of 10,000 years, wouldn't it be better if she could reach it one day earlier? At least, if she became Kirin's messenger, she would no longer need to rely so heavily on water. The words of the deep-sea nether snake had moved the White Lady. At the same time, Lady White had a good feeling about this guy with 9 heads whom she had just met. She could feel the deep-sea nether serpent's true feelings for her. After thinking about it for a while, she was already a little shaken. She asked tentatively, "Can I really become Kirin's servant? Great King, will you despise me for not having enough strength?" Chi-Yu smiled and shook his head. "Of course not. I've never thought of using the envoy's power." Back then, he had accepted Big Brother Nether Snake as an envoy because of fate. Now this is the only way for you to leave with us with peace of mind. As long as you are willing, I will definitely treat you like I treat Brother Nether Snake. I will also treat you as a friend. The deep-sea nether snake said anxiously, "White Lady, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Why are you still hesitating?" The White Lady raised her huge head and swam to Chi-Yu's side. After taking a look at the deep-sea nether snake, she said solemnly, "As a member of the mythological beasts, it is the greatest honor of my life to be the envoy of King Kirin. Please give me your power, King." Chi-Yu smiled indifferently and said, "If you become my envoy, we will be friends forever. From now on, Sister White, you can call me by my name. My name is Chi-Yu." As he spoke, Chi-Yu's eyes lit up. The thundercloud force in his body slowly increased. His eyes gradually emitted a light that belonged only to Kirin. One was silver and the other was black. In the night, they looked full of sacred aura. The White Lady lowered her head and relaxed her huge body. The energy in her body was completely restrained, and she quietly waited for the moment to come. Lin Bing Do Jia Jia Zhan Lai Qian Xing. The God's edict is clear. The sky is clear. The earth is clear. The God is pure, not polluted. The ghosts and demons are subdued, and the yin and yang are united. Descend. Chi-Yu's sonorous and powerful voice came from afar in the night. The silver-black shadow of Kirin appeared out of thin air and floated in the air. You looked at the White Lady. This time it was completely different from the time when he and the deep-sea nether snake were in a passive state. At that time, in order to save his life, Chi-Yu had to launch Kirin's descent. In a sense, this situation was very dangerous, and it was very easy for him to be devoured. But now it was different. The White Lady was willing to be his envoy. What he needed to do was to completely connect himself with the White Lady's aura, and with his own energy he would accept the White Lady as his most sincere friend and partner. His black hair stood on end, and an equally terrifying aura emanated from his body. The image of Kirin on the Creation Network continued to expand. In the blink of an eye, it had transformed into a huge shadow of Kirin that was more than 30 meters long. Kirin lowered his head, and the horn on his head shone with a bright, silver-black light. At this time, Chi-Yu also raised his right arm. Silver symbols were emitted from the fingertips of Chi-Yu's right hand, and the same symbols were emitted from the horn of Ink Kirin's shadow. The same silver symbols merged in midair, forming a circle that spread around. White Lady, are you willing to be my envoy and never betray me, no matter what dangerous situations arise? Chi-Yu's voice became much deeper, and his magnetic voice carried infinite majesty. The White Lady's huge body trembled for a moment, and she replied earnestly, I am willing. A faint smile appeared on Chi-Yu's face. As the inheritor of Kirin's bloodline, I declare that I will forever be the most sincere partner with the White Lady. I will forever be the most sincere partner of the White Snake, and I will never leave her until the end of my life. The silver light in his eyes suddenly shone brightly, and the circle formed by the complicated silver symbols fell instantly, completely enveloping the White Lady's body. Amidst the flickering light, the White Lady's huge body began to tremble slightly. However, the light in her eyes looked very bright, and she had no intention of resisting. At this moment, something different from the last time he used Kirin's god's descent appeared. In the silver halo, emerald-like green light spots floated out, arranged neatly in a straight line in the air, and quickly condensed towards the horn on the White Lady's head. In the embellishment of the emerald light, the White Lady's horn gradually turned green. Then, as the green light spots became more and more intense, her whole body was surrounded by the emerald light. Chi-Yu put his hands together in front of him, stretched out his right hand, and grabbed at the White Lady's body. At this time, the White Lady had already closed her huge eyes. With a flash of light, her body disappeared into thin air. Everything around them became calm. The deep-sea nether snake asked uneasily, Is that all right? Chi-Yu nodded and said with a smile, Didn't you do the same back then? The deep-sea nether snake smiled bitterly and said, But I didn't have that green light back then. Will it be all right? Chi-Yu snappily replied, How could that be? You're too worried and confused. Think about it. Since the White Lady is under my command, even without the guidance of my mental strength, my body will not harm her in any way. I think that the green light from before was the effect of the origin of nature in my body. Just like what you said to her before, this can only be a good thing. Now that the White Lady's mental strength has been completely withdrawn and she has entered a deep slumber, I think that she is about to undergo the transformation of the origin of nature. I'm afraid that we will only know what the effects of this complete transformation will be after she wakes up. The deep-sea nether snake said, Then take me back. I want to protect her. As long as I can always watch her, I will be satisfied. Chi-Yu smiled and said, Brother Nether Snake, don't forget what you promised me before. The deep-sea nether snake said, I won't forget. Now I also hope that your strength can become stronger. It is uncertain what kind of fierce beasts and mythological beasts we will encounter in the future. If you, a second-class Kirin, don't have some strength, how can you protect us? Chi-Yu said angrily, Well, I just helped you, and you are already insulting me. You are a typical example of burning the bridge after crossing the river. How can I be a second-class Kirin? The deep-sea nether snake smiled and said, You have inherited Kiran's bloodline, but you are a human after all. Whether it is the Chaos King or my lovely white lady, they all think that you are humanoid Kiran. Otherwise, do you think it will be so smooth? I don't want you to be exposed in front of my beloved white lady, so I will definitely help you. Take me back into your body first. I will use my spiritual power to pass on all the characteristics of the NEI pill to you. You can start cultivating immediately. After that, you can subtly absorb the energy of the blue sea thunder bead and the golden-winged eagle NEI pill. When the bright and beautiful sun shone on the earth, Tu Jia had already begun to lead his clansmen to pack their bags and get ready to set off. Dad, Brother Chiyu, and the others are missing. I don't know where they went. Toussaint ran to Tu Jia and said while panting. Tu Jia stared blankly for a moment before saying, Gone? Could it be that they went out to take a bath last night and never came back? Toussaint looked at his father with eagerness in his eyes. Dad, why didn't I go and look for them? I am fast, and I will be back in a while. Tu Jia hesitated for a moment, but he still stopped his son. Forget it. Maybe they have already left. We can't be late for the Torch Festival. We still have to set off soon, and we can't wait. Toussaint said with dissatisfaction, but our mountain is so big. What if the Genesis Network and the others got lost? If they can't find us, you will definitely be worried. Tu Jia said impatiently, Do you think that your brother Qi will be like you? They are very capable, so they definitely won't get lost. If they haven't come back until now, they either encountered something or they have quietly left. Toussaint said stubbornly, No, Dad, I believe that Brother Chiyu and the others won't leave. Otherwise, they will definitely tell us first. How about this? You guys go on your way first, and I will look for Brother Chiyu and the others. If I can't find them, I will go after you guys, okay? Tu Jia obviously doted on his son very much. He nodded helplessly and said, Okay, but you must be careful on the way. If you encounter a giant beast, you must avoid it. Don't be impulsive, understand? Toussaint said excitedly, Okay, Dad, I am very smart. I will go and look for them now. A clear voice was heard. No need to look for them, we are back. Tu Jia and his son looked in the direction of the voice and saw Chiyu, Wenting, and Snow Girl walking back from outside the camp. On the surface, the three of them looked much more refreshed after taking a bath. Snow Girl and Wenting looked even more attractive. Toussaint quickly ran to Chiyu and asked, Brother Chiyu, where did you go? We're about to set off soon. Chiyu smiled and patted Toussaint's head. We went out for a walk. Fortunately, we made it in time. I am really sorry for making you worry. Tu Jia looked at Chiyu meaningfully. Tu Sang did not notice anything wrong, but he could clearly feel that Chiyu's aura had undergone a huge change. When Chiyu had emerged from the cave after his training yesterday, he had been like an unsheathed sword. But now, it seemed that his aura had become abnormally calm, and it was impossible to tell how deep it was. Tu Jia said, Since you are back, quickly change your clothes. I have already prepared them for you. Chiyu nodded. Tu Jia had already told him yesterday that in order to avoid unnecessary trouble, it was better to conceal their original appearances. The three returned to the cave under Tu Jia's arrangements. Because Tu Jia thought that they were husband and wife, he only arranged a cave for them to wear. He taught them how to wear the clothes made of various plants. After that, Tu Jia brought Toussaint out to continue preparing for their departure. As the tribe's chief, he was very busy at this time. Chiyu picked up the clothes that Tu Jia had prepared for him and looked at them. There was only a short skirt that was woven from leaves. He didn't know what kind of leaves it was, but it felt very tough. Ting giggled and said, You look like a savage when you wear this. Chiyu laughed and said, Don't laugh at me first. Take a look at your clothes first. Only then did Ting realize that Snow Girl's expression didn't look too good. She was holding the leaves in front of her and gesturing, but didn't move. After looking carefully, she realized that the clothes that Tu Jia had prepared for them were no different from those of the women of the Alpine tribe outside. It could be said that it was a very different set of bikini underwear. Only the most important parts were covered. How do I wear this? Wen Ting looked at Chiyu with dissatisfaction. Chiyu laughed and said, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. You guys just make do. Anyway, you don't need to wear it for too long. When we leave the Alpine tribe, we can change to lie. Snow Girl directly put the clothes that were woven from leaves back on the ground, as if she didn't hear what Chiyu said at all. Wen Ting wasn't as direct as her. She slowly snuggled up to Chiyu, and her eyes revealed a gentle light. Chiyu, do you want your wife's body to be seen by other men? If you aren't jealous, then I don't have any objections. Only then did Chiyu realize the seriousness of the problem. He smiled bitterly and said, then what should I do? I've already promised them. Wen Ting snorted and said, I don't care. You're the one who promised. We didn't. You think of a way. In any case, we definitely won't wear such clothes. An idea flashed in Chiyu's mind, and he said, okay, you guys wait here for me. I'll be back soon. As he said that, he turned around and walked out. Just as he walked to the door, he stopped and turned to Wen Ting and Snow Girl and said, how about this? You guys put on the clothes that they prepared for you first. Of course, keep the underwear inside. I'll think of a way to solve the other problems. I definitely won't let you guys be seen by others. After saying that, he flashed and left the cave. Wen Ting and Snow Girl looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. Snow Girl, if we find the Kunlun mirrors and develop this place into a tourist attraction, do you think the effect will be very good? This is the real original ecology. Snow Girl also showed a rare smile and said, then should we wear them now or not? With these days of contact, her hostility towards Chiyu and Wen Ting was not as strong as before. After all, whether they could go back or not was a problem. If they didn't unite, perhaps they wouldn't have a chance. Wen Ting nodded and said, since Chiyu said he has a way, then we'll put on the clothes. If you're slow, when he comes back later, are you going to take off your clothes in front of him? Snow Girl's face stiffened. She didn't say anything and immediately started to take action. After a while, Chiyu came back from outside. At the same time, he was carrying a large pile of leaves. As soon as he entered the cave, Chiyu was immediately stunned. He didn't even notice that the leaves in his arms had fallen to the ground. Snow Girl hid behind Wen Ting bashfully. Although Wen Ting was more generous, her pretty face still blushed. At this moment, they had already changed into the clothes prepared by the High Mountain tribe. You couldn't see whether they took off their undergarments or not. However, the few leaves wrapped around their chest and the most important parts of their lower bodies. Their slender thighs, slender waists, and snow-white skin were exposed. Wen Ting's long hair had turned dark red and not black. At this moment, she wasn't using her ability. However, you couldn't be bothered to pay attention to these details. The two women who were wearing such revealing clothes triggered his most primitive reaction. His mouth instantly became dry. Oh my God, you two are simply the most outstanding masterpiece of the gods. Yu widened his eyes as if he wanted to imprint the two women's delicate bodies into his mind. Wen Ting, who had long dark red hair, and the Snow Lady, who had long green hair, were wearing the Alpine Earth tribe's leaves that were filled with a primitive aura. That feeling was absolutely indescribable. Yu thought to himself that if he could really return to his era, he would definitely bring back a few of these clothes and give them to Mingming, Ruyu, and Shangbing. This was simply too exciting. If he could let them wear these clothes with him. At this thought, Yu felt his nose heat up. He hurriedly looked to the side and took a deep breath to calm his surging emotions. Wen Ting said, coquettishly, still looking, "What idea did you come up with?" Yu pointed at the leaves on the ground and said, "Look at what these are. This is my idea. Anyway, you have to wear clothes made of leaves, and I don't want others to see your bodies. So I found these leaves. I carefully selected these leaves, and they are very tough. It's definitely not a problem to make them into a layer. Won't it be fine if you wrap your skin with them? Come on. Do you want me to help you two ladies put on clothes? Hee hee, don't worry, I purposely went to the waterfall, and the leaves are all washed. Wen Ting's eyes revealed a trace of approval. She said, Why don't you hurry up and change? What about yourself? Chi Yu said, It doesn't matter to me. Anyway, I am a man. I will wear the clothes they prepared. I will change now. If you are willing to admire my strong physique, I have no objections. As he spoke, he had already started to take off his clothes without hesitation. Ah! Snow Girl exclaimed and hurriedly turned her back. Even Wen Ting couldn't help but blush. She also turned around and said angrily, You're so annoying. Who wants to see you? As he spoke, he went to the side and took the tree leaves. With the Snow Lady's back facing Chi Yu, he and the Snow Lady began to discuss how to better cover their bodies. Okay, I'm dressed. Chi Yu smiled. Snow Girl and Wen Ting turned around at the same time. At this time, there were some changes in their clothes. All women loved to be beautiful, especially beautiful women like them. Although leaves could be regarded as the simplest material, under their skillful hands, it had become a new look. Don't forget, Wen Ting used to be a fashion designer. Although she set up underwear at that time, she had a deep understanding of overall fashion design. Seeing the appearance of the two women, Chi Yu couldn't help but light up. They didn't simply use leaves to cover their bodies. If that was the case, Chi Yu would definitely laugh at them for being dumplings. Under the original leaf skirt, there was an additional pair of cropped pants that were simply woven with a few large leaves, revealing a small part of the snow-white skin of their calves. The upper body was also made with leaves to make a simple effect. It seemed that when combined with the original leaf skirt, it looked like a dress. The green and full of vitality of the leaves set off their charming and delicate bodies. So beautiful, Chi Yu praised. He could only use the simplest words to describe the appearance of the two women now. While Chi Yu was looking at the two women, Wen Ting and Snow Girl were also looking at him. Genesis Network's Chi Yu was wearing the short skirt made of leaves. His upper body and legs were all naked. Originally, the two women thought that he would be very funny dressed like this, but now it seemed that it was completely different from what they had expected. Chi Yu's bronze skin looked very healthy. The well-proportioned muscles were well-defined, his broad shoulders, thick chest, and every muscle that was full of strength perfectly reflected the masculinity of a man. Even Ba Ge didn't look as tall and strong as he did that day, but he didn't lose his balance. His long black hair was scattered on his shoulders, and his seemingly ordinary face revealed a trace of a mischievous smile. It could be said that it was Chi Yu's smile, giving people a feeling of a spring breeze. His eyes were very bright, and under his ordinary face, it gave people a deep feeling. Two beauties, haven't you seen a handsome man before? Chi Yu soon noticed that the two women seemed to be looking at him a little strangely. He made a bodybuilder's pose, showing off his granite-like muscles. Snow Girl snorted softly and turned her head away. Wen Ting's pretty face was slightly red, and she glared at Chi Yu. At this moment, Toussaint's voice came from outside. Brother Chi Yu, are you guys ready? We're leaving. Okay, we'll be out in a minute. As he spoke, Chi Yu quickly picked out 2 large leaves from the remaining leaves on the ground and placed them on Wen Ting and Snow Girl's heads. Because the leaves were very big, they drooped slightly, basically covering the two women's pretty faces. Although they still looked very different from the Alpine group, if they were in the crowd, they would not be as conspicuous as before. Slightly smaller. Chi Yu's eyes lit up. Baby wife, Snow Girl, let's go. Chi Yu did not know what he was about to face, but his current mood had already calmed down from the panic he felt when he first saw the ancient beasts. No matter what he was going to face, he could maintain a calm and optimistic attitude. Under the leadership of Tu Jie's tribe, a majestic group of more than 3,000 people slowly left their campsite. Because the Torch Festival was the biggest festival of the Alpine tribe and also the most important day of the year for all the Alpine tribe, they did not even leave their campsite. All of them went out to participate in this grand festival. Every Alpine tribe member's face was filled with happiness and simple smiles. Obviously, they were all looking forward to the arrival of this day. Perhaps it was because of the rain a few days ago, the air in the mountains was especially fresh. The slightly moist air carried the fragrance of plants and soil. Smelling it, Chi-Yu could not help but be a little intoxicated. Chi-Yu found that ever since he became the origin of nature, he seemed to be more and more reluctant to part with the beauty of nature. He did not miss the days when he was in the city. If it was not for his lover and friends, he really did not want to leave this era. Even if he had to stay with the Alpine tribe for a long time, he would be very willing to do so. The area of this mountain range was very large, and Tujie's tribe was on the periphery of the mountain range. Therefore, as soon as they set off, Tujie led his clansmen to quicken their pace. The Torch Festival would be held in the evening 2 days later. Within 2 days, they had to reach the largest tribe of the Alpine tribe in the center of the entire mountain range, which was also the tribe of the chief of the Alpine tribe. During the journey, the most excited ones were Toussaint and his younger siblings. These children of the Alpine tribe seemed to be born with great talent for mountain climbing. They jumped up and down in front and behind and had a lot of fun. The overall pace of the Alpine tribe was very fast. In just one morning, they had already climbed over 4 to 5 tall mountains. Chi-Yu, Wen-Ting, and Snow Girl were in the middle of the group. The 3 of them followed the pace of the Alpine tribe. To them, this speed was nothing. As they walked, Chi-Yu held Wen-Ting's hand and admired the surrounding scenery. Occasionally, he would pluck a few small flowers from the mountains and give them to Wen-Ting and Snow Girl. He felt very relaxed. At first, Snow Girl didn't want Chi-Yu's flowers. Later, Chi-Yu thought of a way to get Wen-Ting to give them to Snow Girl, and she accepted it tacitly. Chi-Yu vaguely realized that the coldness on Snow Girl's face seemed to be gradually melting. She was becoming more and more like a normal girl. It was as if the primitive environment of the ancient beasts was changing her mentality. The group of more than 3,000 people advanced at a much faster speed than Chi-Yu had expected. These high mountain tribesmen, whether adults or children who had been living in the mountains for a long time, were all very strong and healthy. Only those who were too old or too young had to be assisted by the strong men of the tribe. Chi-Yu and the other 2 stayed with Tujie's family. As they hurried along, they gradually became familiar with the way. During one of Toussaint's casual chats, he mentioned Tujie's situation. Tujie was originally a high mountain tribesman who had a giant beast as his companion. He was also one of the most outstanding warriors of the Earth tribe. In a 4-clan hero competition, he had represented the Earth tribe and obtained a top 10 result. It was also after that competition that he became the chief of a high mountain tribe. The most outstanding warrior of the high mountain tribe was their chief. In this era, martial strength was undoubtedly the most important. The chief who had grown up with Tujie had obtained a top 3 result in a 4-clan hero competition. He had brought great glory to the high mountain tribe and was deeply loved and respected by the people. After learning about this, Chi-Yu could not help but be more interested in this chief of the high mountain tribe. After all, the Earth tribe was said to be the descendant of Emperor Huang. To be able to become the chief of a branch tribe of the high mountain tribe, he must have outstanding qualities. Chapter 123. However, Chi-Yu's imagination did not run wild for too long. After 2 days of trekking, they finally arrived at the first tribe of the Alpine Earth tribe on the afternoon of the 3rd day. Every tribe of the Alpine Earth tribe was named after their chief. As long as the tribe changed its chief, the name of the tribe would be changed as well. During the 2nd year's Torch Festival, the chief would announce the new name of the tribe to all the tribes. From afar, the mountain peaks on both sides seemed even taller. However, the distance between the mountains had also increased. After passing through a col, Chi-Yu and the others immediately saw a relatively flat area in front of them. It was a basin-like area surrounded by 4 tall mountains. According to Tujie, This was the best environment in the entire Alpine Earth tribe. It was the most suitable land for living. And the chief of the Alpine Earth tribe, Shirway, was in charge of everything in the Alpine Earth tribe. Although the scale was much larger than Tujia's tribe, the overall situation was not much different from Tujia's tribe. There were many caves in the mountains surrounding the basin, all of which were the residences of the Shirway tribe. Some were natural, while others were man-made. It felt like the overall atmosphere was very harmonious. Chiyu took a quick look and found that there were about 2,000 caves. If a family had 5 members, then this Shirway tribe would have more than 10,000 people. It was no wonder that they were the largest tribe of the Alpine Earth tribe. The basin was very vast. As it was surrounded by mountains, only a few low-lying areas were separated by tall fences. The other areas were all natural barriers. Tujie's tribe was clearly a little late. At this time, the basin was very lively. At a glance, there were large crowds of people gathered around the basin. Although their clothes were similar, it was easy to tell that they were from different tribes. Chiyu did a simple count and found that there were more than 20 tribes here. Tujie directed his tribesmen to enter the basin. Before they could find a suitable space, a huge figure appeared at the front of their group. It was Ba Gu who was riding on a black tiger. Ba Ji's loud laughter seemed to spread throughout the entire basin. He shouted, "Big brother Tujie, you're finally here. I've been waiting for you. Where's brother Chiyu? Where is he?" Tujie was at the front of the group. When he saw Ba Gu, he couldn't help but laugh. "You little brat. Don't you know how to restrain yourself? Can't you see that all the tribes have arrived? Be careful, or else the chief will blame you for bringing your giant beast companions to disturb the order." Ba Gu chuckled and said, "Big brother, as long as you don't complain, how will the chief know? Where's brother Chiyu? When we were chatting the other day, didn't he say that he wanted to participate in our torch festival? The last time I came back, I told the chief about the battle between me and brother Chiyu. The chief admires him very much. He said that when you guys arrive, he'll let you bring him to see the chief." Chiyu walked out from the crowd and smiled. "Ba Gu, I'm here. Does Chief Shirway want to see me? It just so happens that I have something to ask him. Big brother Tujie, let's go together." Tujie nodded and smiled. "I haven't seen Shirway for a year. I wonder if he's still the same on the Genesis network. Ba Gu, after I settle down my tribesmen, will go there immediately." As he spoke, he quickly called for his tribesmen and followed Ba Gu into the depths of the basin. Ba Gu was a warrior of the Shirway tribe. He had a good reputation among the entire Alpine tribe. Last year, he had participated in the 4-tribe hero competition. Although he only got around the 20th place, his participation in such a competition had earned him a lot of admiration from his tribesmen. He also had a good relationship with Tujie. Before Tujie's tribe arrived, he had already reserved the best place for them. With him leading the way, Tujie felt a lot more relaxed. Soon, under Baji's lead, they arrived at the west side of the basin. This place was not directly exposed to the sun. It was very cool because it was close to the mountain wall. There were a lot of plants around, and the terrain was relatively high. From here, they could see almost every corner of the basin. However, the process of settling down the tribesmen was not smooth. When Ba Gu brought them to this place with good feng shui, Chiyu found that a tribe had already started to set up camp. Before Tujie could ask, Ba Gu was already angry. "Who allowed you to set up camp here?" His roar was like muffled thunder, scaring the people around him. Riding on the huge black tiger, he rushed forward and arrived in front of the tribe that was setting up camp. When the Alpine people saw Ba Gu, they were obviously a little afraid. At this moment, a person walked out from the crowd and walked in front of Ba Gu. "I was the one who wanted to set up camp here. The chief once said that during the Torch Festival, each tribe can choose their own location. First come, first served. Is that right, Ba Gu?" Ba Gu snorted and said, "That's right, the chief did say that. However, I've already chosen this place. You're obviously not giving me face by coming here. The person who was talking to Ba Go was not tall, only about 7 meters. Moreover, Ba Go was looking down on him, which made him look even thinner. However, this ordinary-looking person was very stubborn. He snorted coldly and said, Ba Go, you're from the Shirway tribe. This is your territory to begin with. Aren't the surrounding caves yours to live in? Ba Go said angrily, Luce, don't think that just because your tribe has a certain scale, you're so great. That's right. I naturally didn't choose this place for myself. I chose it for Tu Jie's tribe. They're far away from us. Shouldn't we prepare a place for them first? Luce was about to say something, but Tu Jie had already walked up and said, Forget it, Ba Ge. It doesn't matter where our tribe is set up. Since Big Brother Luce's, people have arrived first. Then let them set up camp here. Luce glanced at Tu Jie, and his eyes flickered slightly. However, from his expression, it was clear that he didn't appreciate Tu Jie's favor. Instead, he sneered and said, Tu Jie, long time no see. It looks like your tribe is very prosperous. Tu Jie calmly said, but it still can't compare to Big Brother Luce's tribe's prosperity. Right now, your tribe already has around 6,000 people. I'm afraid that apart from the chief's tribe, your tribe is the largest. Luce said proudly, That's right. It's precisely because my tribe is large enough that I want to occupy this relatively large place. Ba Ge and Tu Jie both have no objections, so why are you still talking nonsense? Be careful that I go to Chief Shirway and complain about you. Ba Ge was furious. F***CK, Luce, are you F** King courting death? As he spoke, he had already raised the 6-meter-long stone spear in his hand. This stone spear wasn't made of ordinary stone, but a special or that was extremely hard. Otherwise, it would have been broken by Chi Yu's thundercloud force previously. Pointing the stone spear forward, Ba Ge's aura surged. The black tiger he was riding on let out a deep roar, and Luce couldn't help but take a few steps back before regaining his balance. Ba Ge, how dare you attack me? Who do you think you are? Don't forget, I'm the chief of Luce's tribe. Luce's expression was very ugly. His tribesmen had already surrounded him. Ba Ge snorted and said, I attacked you. So what about the Genesis Network? You're still not convinced? You sly fox, you're usually up to no good, and you still want to occupy a good place during the Torch Festival. F***CK, as long as I'm here today, I won't let your Luce tribe stay here. If you're not convinced, then fight me. If you can win, then I'll consider you capable. Tu Jie frowned and stepped forward to grab the tip of Ba Ge's stone spear. He said in a deep voice, Ba Ge, the Torch Festival is going to be held tonight. There's no need to fool around. Do you want to cause trouble? As he said that, he winked at Ba Ge. However, Ba Ge's temper flared up, and he ignored Tu Jie's advice. Instead, he shouted, Big Brother Tu Jie, don't stop me. I've long disliked that old Luce. Have you forgotten? If it wasn't for him messing around last time, perhaps our Alpine tribe would have a higher status among the Earth tribe. Hearing this, Luce's expression changed. Ba Ge, you need to have a basis for what you're saying. Ba Ge snorted coldly. Basis, my A****. Do you think I don't know what you're made of? Don't tell me that it wasn't you who caused the death of tribe leader Shirway's son? Hearing this, both Tu Jie and Luce's expressions changed. Luce took a step forward and roared, Bullsh***T. What basis do you have? I heard that it was me who caused the death of your tribe leader's son. At that time, he overestimated his own abilities and went to tame the giant beast. Who knew that the giant beast was so powerful? Moreover, it chose my son in the end. My son is already an adult this year, so it's the same for him to represent our Alpine tribe in the 4-tribe hero tournament. Listening to their conversation, Chi Yu roughly understood the current situation. From the looks of it, There was also a power struggle among these simple alpine native tribe members. Could this be the root of the human race? For the sake of power, they would do anything. Chi Yu was very clear about Ba Ji's temper. He had already figured it out from the battle that day. Although he was a little rash, he was definitely not the kind of person who would lie. Since he said so, unless it was really a misunderstanding, this guy named Luce was definitely not a good person. Ba Gu roared fiercely. With a shake of his stone spear, he forcefully pushed Tu Jia away. The spear carried a surging force and went straight for Luce's chest. Luce's expression changed drastically, and he subconsciously took a step back. He obviously had some skills. The creation's network, but in a hurry, he did not have any weapons in his hands. He could only lower his body and use his hands to block the spear. What kind of strength did Bagu have? Although his title as the #1 warrior of the Alpine tribe was somewhat exaggerated, his strength was definitely one of the best in the entire Alpine tribe. The spear was blocked by his opponent, and he immediately pressed down with all his might. Luce's knees weakened, and he had already knelt on the ground with one knee. His expression was extremely ugly, and he was barely holding on. When Ba Gu made his move, he already had the intention to kill. His eyes flashed, and the black tiger under him had already moved. It opened its mouth and spat out a black energy bomb, which went straight for Luce's chest. Ba Gu was afraid that Tu Jia would stop him, so he moved very quickly. At this moment, it was already too late for Tu Jia to react while he was still in a momentary shock. "Who dares to hurt my father?" A sharp roar was heard, and a figure rushed over like lightning. Chi Yu's eyes narrowed, and he reached out to grab Tu Jia. They quickly retreated 10 meters away and returned to the front of Tu Jia's tribe. The figure that rushed over was very fast, and a red light blocked between Luce and the black tiger's energy ball. The light shone brightly, and with a loud bang, it blocked the black tiger's attack. Although Ba Gu was not weak, he still relied on the 2,000-year-old black tiger he was riding on. The explosion of energy shook his entire body, and the black tiger also retreated 10 meters before regaining his balance. Opposite them, Luce had already been rescued. He looked very pale, and the person who had rescued him was a young man. From his appearance, he looked at Luce at least 70% like Luce, except that he was slightly taller. At this moment, he was riding on the back of a monster, and his eyes shone with a malicious light as he looked at Ba Gu with an unfriendly expression. The monster that this young man was riding on attracted Chi Yu's attention. It was a very strange monster. Its appearance was somewhat similar to the green phosphorus tree splitting lizard, but its body was not as tall as the green phosphorus tree splitting lizard. However, it was much longer, almost as long as the green phosphorus tree splitting lizard after taking the NEI pill. Moreover, it had a pair of huge wings on its back, and purple mucus constantly dripped from its mouth. When the mucus dripped onto the ground, it made puffing sounds. There were 2 horns on the monster's head. The horns were curved, and the tips of the horns were pointing forward, and they flickered with a faint light. The most peculiar thing were its eyes. Ordinary giant beasts only had 2 eyes, but this one had 4, 2 on each side. Some of the protruding eyes were constantly moving, and the color of its body was similar to the soil on the ground. The appearance of this monster reminded Chi Yu of an animal from his era. However, this monster was much larger than the animal he knew. That was the chameleon. However, Chi Yu was not sure if this monster's skin would change color, but from its ferocious appearance and surging energy aura, it was definitely a powerful beast. Its cultivation was at least 3,000 years. No wonder Luce was not afraid of Ba Gu, who had the black tiger. "Ba Gu, how dare you attack my father?" The young man's eyes were filled with resentment. He did not have any weapons in his hands, and the monster's body was tied with tough vines. At this moment, his hands were tightly gripping the vines, and it was obvious that he was extremely angry. The resentment in Baji's eyes was no less than the young man's. He glanced at the monster that the young man was riding and said hatefully, "That's right, I want to kill this old bastard. What's wrong? Did the young come out after the old one was beaten? Lu Yu, don't think that you can be arrogant in front of me just because you have a giant beast companion. Humph, in my eyes, you're still a little brat who hasn't even dried his mother's fur." Luce had already been rescued by his son onto the back of the monster. At this time, when he heard Ba Ji's words, he said angrily, "Fine, Ba Ge, just you wait. Although you're a giant beast warrior in the tribe, you attacked the chief of the second largest tribe. I must have the chief uphold justice for this matter." Ba Ge snorted and said, "Come on, I'm afraid of you. Are you going to bite my bird? I'll wait for you. Lu Yu, don't you have a giant beast companion now? Come on, fight with me. Let me see how you're getting along with your giant beast companion. However, I'm heavy-handed. If I end up crippling you, don't blame me. Shut up." A cold voice suddenly sounded. Although the voice was not loud, it clearly reached the ears of everyone present. An illusory figure rushed over from afar. When he shouted these two words, his body did not stop, but his voice was very stable. There was no fluctuation because of his rapid advance. Feeling this person's aura, Chi Yu's pupils involuntarily shrank. In his heart, he thought to himself, "Finally, a decent expert has appeared." In almost a few blinks of an eye, the figure had already arrived in front of them. This person seemed to be slightly younger than Tu Jie. He was very handsome. Although his skin was darker, it was much better than the other people of the Alpine native tribe. Basically, it was brown. He had a pair of black eyes that seemed to radiate power. His body was very well proportioned, about 9 meters tall. He wore a skirt made of animal skin and a slanted shirt made of leaves. He also wore a headband on his head. The headband seemed to be made of the bones of some kind of animal. In the center of the headband, there was a yellow gem that emitted a faint light. Previously, Ba Ge was unusually arrogant, but when he saw the appearance of this person, his aura immediately weakened. He hurriedly put away the stone spear in his hand and said in a low voice, "Chief, you're here." It turned out that the person who had suddenly arrived was the chief of the entire Alpine native tribe, Shirue, who was in charge of over 100,000 people of the Alpine native tribe. Shirue glared at Ba Ge and said coldly, "You feel bad if you don't cause trouble for me, don't you?" Luce flipped over and jumped down from his son's huge beast. He walked up to Shirue in a few steps and roared angrily, "Shirue, although you're the chief, you have to give me an explanation for this. Otherwise, the Luce tribe will not let go of your Shirue tribe. Ba Ge actually tried to kill me, the chief. Tell me, what should I do?" A cold light flashed in Shirue's eyes. His tone became gentler as he said, "I'm sorry, Chief Luce. I failed to discipline my son. I apologize on behalf of Ba Ge." Ba Ge shouted loudly, "What's the point of apologizing, clan leader?" He had just said this when he saw Shirue's cold gaze. He swallowed the second half of his sentence and looked away in embarrassment. Lu Yu, who was sitting on the back of the huge beast, said coldly, "Is an apology enough? Don't tell me that in the Alpine native tribe we only need to apologize after killing someone. Chief Shirue, you're being too hasty." Shirue nodded and said, "I will definitely give the Luce tribe an explanation for this. However, Chief Luce, today is the annual Torch Festival of our tribe. I don't want your conflict to affect the celebration of our tribe. Don't worry, I will definitely deal with Ba Ge. However, everything can wait until the Torch Festival is over. What do you think?" Luce looked at Shirue. His slightly flickering eyes did not dare to meet Shirue's cold gaze. He snorted and said, "You're the chief. You can do whatever you want. However, we came here first, so we should be the ones stationed here." Shirue nodded and said, "Of course. Ba Ge, go home immediately. Without my orders, you're not allowed to take a step out of the house. You don't have to attend the Torch Festival tonight." "What? Chief, Ba Ge clearly could not understand Shirue's attitude. He looked at him in disbelief. Shirue said coldly, "What? Don't you understand what I'm saying?" Ba Ji's lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but he did not say anything in the end. He threw the stone spear in his hand hatefully and urged the black tiger beneath him to head towards the other side of the basin. Shirue turned to Tu-Jie and said apologetically, "Brother Tu-Jie, I'm sorry. I'll have to ask you and your tribesmen to change places." Tu-Jie laughed heartily and said, "Shirue, what are you saying? We've been brothers for so many years. Do we still need to be so courteous? Let's go. As the chief, please make the arrangements for me." Shirue nodded and gestured to the Loose father and son before leading Tu-Jie in another direction. After leaving the Loose tribe's camp, Tu-Jie said in a low voice, "Shirue, aren't you being too harsh on Baga? Not allowing him to attend the Torch Festival seems a little too much. After all, this is the greatest humiliation to a warrior." Shirue shook his head and said, "Brother Tu-Jie, you don't know this, but Bagu has caused quite a lot of trouble for me these past few years. If I don't punish him severely this time, not only will Loose cause trouble, but Bagu will also become even more unbridled. Although he's an outstanding warrior, he's too impulsive and can't help me much. I hope he can learn his lesson this time. It's a pity that you're the chief now. Otherwise, with you by my side, I wouldn't have to work so hard. I have another consideration for locking up Bagu. Today's Torch Festival is very important. I don't want him to cause trouble because of his impulsiveness." Tu-Jie sighed and said, "Shirue, you don't look too good. Have you still not recovered from your nephew's death?" A pained look flashed across Shirue's eyes. He furrowed his brows and said indifferently, "I only have that one son." Tu-Jie nodded and said, "I understand, Shirue. Don't worry. No matter what, I'll always stand by your side. The beasts will definitely get what they deserve." Shirue's expression relaxed slightly, and he sighed softly. "Right now, you're the only one I can trust the most, big brother." Tu-Jie's gaze shifted, and he slapped his forehead and said, "Look at me. I was so focused on talking to you that I forgot to introduce a friend to you." As he spoke, he had already stopped in his tracks and turned to Chiyu behind him. Shirue also turned around at the same time. Actually, he had already noticed Chiyu earlier, but because he was talking to Tu-Jie, he did not have the time to ask. This young man must be the hero who defeated Bagu. Chiyu smiled slightly and said, "Greetings, esteemed tribe leader Shirue. I don't deserve to be called a hero." A smile finally appeared on Shirue's face. "Young man, there's no need to be humble. Although Bagu is rash, he has some ability. You were able to defeat him so easily, so you are indeed worthy of being called a hero. Let's go. I'll settle big brother Tu-Jie's tribe first, but then you can come to my place and we can have a chat." Shirue was the tribe leader of the Alpine tribe after all. Under his arrangements, Tu-Jie's tribe was settled in a short while. Although the location was slightly worse than the place that the Loose tribe had forcefully occupied, it was still a relatively good place in the entire basin. Clearly, this tribe leader Shirue had made preparations beforehand. As the Alpine tribe was a tribe that respected men, out of respect, Chiyu did not bring Wen-Ting and Snow Girl with him when he left with Shirue. After giving the two girls a few reminders, he followed Tu-Jie and Shirue to the foot of the mountain on the east side of the basin and entered a wide cave. This cave was much larger than the ones that Chiyu had seen before. It was at least 20 meters tall and 30 meters wide. There were a dozen or so Alpine tribe members standing guard at the entrance. When they saw Shirue return, they bowed to him respectfully. As they walked, Shirue explained to Chiyu, "This is where I deal with the tribe's affairs. Whenever there's a major event in the tribe, or when the various tribe leaders come for a meeting, it's all done here. Come, let's go in." Upon entering the cave, Chiyu immediately saw a strange scene. This was a natural cave, and within the cave were many stalactites. Some were 3 to 4 meters long, while the shortest were at least a meter long. Under the illumination of the cave, they flickered with a milky white radiance. Although the radiance was very simple, it gave off a dazzling feeling. Shirue brought the two of them into the depths of the cave. There was a huge rock here. The rock was not very tall, only about a meter tall, but it was very wide. Around the rock, there were about 50 stools made of stone. Shirue found a stone stool and sat down first. At the same time, he gestured for Chiyu and Tu Jie to sit. Tu Jie didn't stand on ceremony. He pulled Chiyu to sit down and said to Shirue, "Brother, there are no outsiders here, so I won't call you patriarch." Shirue smiled faintly and said, "Big brother Tu Jie, what are you saying? We are brothers to begin with." Tu Jie smiled and said, "That's right. Other than participating in the Torch Festival, I'm also here for Brother Chiyu. Ba Gu has already told you that Brother Chiyu comes from a small tribe far away called the Han. He's out traveling in search of the Empyrean's ruins. You've seen more of the world than me. I wonder if you have any news, or if you can be of help to him." Shirue glanced at it, thought for a moment, and said, "The Empyrean's ruins? This kind of thing is so illusory. It's hard for me to understand why Brother Chi you would be interested in it." Chiyu thought to himself, "How could I not be interested? If we can't find the Kunlun mirrors, we won't be able to find the way back." As he thought to himself, he said, "We Han people like to pursue the unknown. Moreover, we came out this time to see the outside world. As for the Empyrean's ruins, I've only heard of it before. I heard that the Empyrean had left some special items in our world, and all of them have great power. So, to me, searching for the Empyrean's ruins is also an adventure. Life is short, and I like challenges. This is obviously the best choice." A trace of doubt appeared in Shirue's eyes. "So you're saying that you're an adventurer?" Chiyu smiled and said, "You could say that. I wonder if Chief Shirue has any information about this?" Shirue shook his head and said, "I'm sorry. Although I'm the chief of the Alpine tribe, you should have seen that we, the Alpine tribe, have always lived in these mountains. Although I go out sometimes, the time is very short, so I don't know much about the outside world. So, I don't know much about the Empyrean's ruins that you mentioned. I'm afraid I can't help you much." Chapter 124. Shirue's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. "The gathering place of the giant beasts? I heard from Ba Ge that you already have your own giant beast partner. Do you want another giant beast? I've never seen anyone with 2 giant beasts." Chiyu shook his head and said, "That's not the reason. I can't explain the specifics. I just hope that tribe leader can tell me some information about the giant beasts." Shirue said, "Brother Chiyu, it's not that I don't want to help you, but the aura of the giant beasts changes frequently. I can't be sure that they are there. As for the giant beasts, I'm only familiar with the situation in this mountain range, but there aren't many traces of the giant beasts in the mountain range. That's why the Alpine tribe can live and work in peace and contentment here. I hope you can understand." Looking at Shirue, Chiyu vaguely felt that he was not telling him the truth. This was because when Shirue answered his question, his eyes were flickering, as if he was hesitating about something or thinking about something. However, he did not say much. After all, this was someone else's territory. If Shirue was unwilling to tell him, there was nothing he could do. However, from the energy aura that Shirue had displayed previously, his personal strength was at least at the level of a heavenly soul among the Yen Huang souls. He was not sure how he would compare to Tu Jie. However, he was definitely much stronger than Ba Ge, who was as strong as a bull. "I can understand. If that's the case, then forget it. When the Torch Festival ends, we will leave this mountain range. If we're lucky, we might be able to find them ourselves." Shirue was just about to say something when a crisp voice suddenly sounded from outside. "Brother, I heard that big brother Tu Jie is here. Is that true?" A slim figure ran in quickly from outside. Her movements were very agile, and in just a few flashes, she had already arrived in front of Chiyu and the other two. Shirue frowned slightly and said, "Rose, how many times have I told you? This is the tribe's conference hall. Without my permission, no one can enter. Why don't you learn your lesson? Didn't the guards outside stop you? TSK them. Do they dare? The young girl snorted disdainfully. Her eyes lit up as she looked at Tujia and said, Big brother Tujia, you're finally here. This time, you have to teach me your skills. As soon as the girl entered the cave, Chiyu's eyes lit up. It was a girl who looked to be 18 or 19 years old. She was about 7 meters tall, and her skin was paler than Shirue's. It was only slightly darker than him, but it was full of healthy vitality. The unique leaf clothing of the Alpine tribe outlined her alluring figure even more perfectly, with her towering breasts and plump buttocks. Her slender waist gave people a breathtaking feeling. On her beautiful face, a pair of big black eyes subconsciously glanced at him when she was talking to Tujia, revealing a curious light. Her name was Rose, and she was indeed an alluring black rose. Her pretty appearance contained the simplicity unique to the Alpine native tribe, giving off a strange feeling. Tujia smiled and said, Rose, I'm afraid of you. All right, if you're willing, after the Torch Festival ends, you can come to my tribe to play for a few days. You've grown up, and I can teach you some of my abilities. Shirue smiled and said, Tujia, you can't spoil her like this. This girl is getting more and more unruly. Tujia smiled and said, What rules do I need? Isn't Rose as cuter as she is now? Rose giggled and said, Big brother Tujia is still the best. Humph, big brother, if you keep controlling me, I'll pretend to join big brother Tujia's tribe. Shirue looked at his sister helplessly, showing a trace of love in his eyes. All right, as long as you're willing, you can go. Rose's gaze shifted to Chiyu's face. Although Chiyu's appearance was not handsome, his natural noble temperament was not comparable to that of the mountain native tribe. Coupled with his stalwart figure and exposed strong muscles, Rose's beautiful eyes could not help but shine. Big brother, who is he? Why haven't I seen him before? Is he the new chief? Shirue had the highest status in the mountain native tribe. Generally, only the chiefs of the various tribes or people from the headquarters of the native tribe could be brought here by him to receive guests. Shirue's eyes flashed, and he said, Brother Chiyu is a guest from afar. We're talking about something. You can leave first. Rose said with dissatisfaction, No, I also want to hear what you're talking about. Shirue said angrily, Rose. His voice was a little lower. Rose stuck out her tongue and made a face of grievance. Chiyu smiled and said, Since Miss Rose wants to hear it, it's fine. Chief Shirue, I think it's about time we end our conversation. You guys talk. I won't disturb you any longer. Anyway, there was no point in staying here. Shirue took a deep breath and suddenly said, Brother Chiyu, I have a favor to ask of you. I don't know if it's possible. Chiyu was stunned. He thought to himself, why would Shirue suddenly make a request to me? He had just refused to tell me about the giant beasts and the miracles. It seemed a little inappropriate to make a request under such circumstances. However, although he thought so, he did not show it on his face. He smiled and said, If there's anything, Chief, please tell me. If I can help, I won't hesitate. Shirue's face relaxed a little. He said, It's like this. I just thought that although I don't know anything about the miracles, I know someone who might know something. I wonder if Brother Chiyu is interested. Chiyu was taken aback, but he nodded and said, Of course I'm interested. Then I'll have to trouble you, Chief. Shirue shook his head and said, No, I should be the one troubling you. My friend was not to be seen by anyone. Brother Chiyu, you're not a member of our clan after all. I'm afraid it might be difficult. So, I only need you to do me a favor. Only then will I have the ability to bring you to him. Shirue's words could not help but pique Chiyu's curiosity. He retracted his footsteps and sat back down. Please speak, clan leader. Shirue said, It's like this. The person I'm talking about is the Grand Shaman of the Earth Tribe. He is the wisest of the Earth tribe, and there is almost nothing he doesn't know about the Yanhuang land. If you can get his help, I think it will be much easier for you to find the miracles. It's just that the Grand Shaman has an extremely high status in the Earth tribe. He won't leave the Earth tribe headquarters easily. So if you want to see him, you have to go to the Earth tribe headquarters. And Brother Chi isn't a member of the Earth tribe. This is a little difficult, and it's even more impossible to see the Grand Shaman. So I just thought of an idea. Chi Yu's heart jumped. He thought about what he had seen and heard after coming to the Alpine tribe's largest tribe, and he understood a little. What idea is that? Please enlighten me, Chief. Shirue continued, It's like this. Our 4 major tribes will hold a 4 tribes hero competition every year. Before the competition, each tribe has to go through an internal selection. The Alpine tribe is the largest branch of the Earth tribe. Therefore, during the Torch Festival every year, we also have to participate in this competition. We pick out the strongest warrior. He will directly become a participant of the Earth tribe. Back then, Tujia and later Bagu all had this honor. If Brother Chi is willing to participate in the selection of our Torch Festival, and when in the end, I will be able to smoothly bring you into the headquarters of the 2 race. At that time, with my relationship with the Great Shaman, you will naturally be able to get his help. Chi Yu smiled faintly and said, So Chief wants me to first become the representative of the Alpine tribe, and then become the representative of the entire Earth tribe to participate in the 4 tribes hero competition. Shirue nodded and said, That's right. This is why I want you to help. Perhaps Brother Chi also knows that the Earth tribe is the descendant of Emperor Huang. However, over the years, the other tribes have continuously produced powerful warriors. Although the Earth tribe has the advantage in numbers, we're gradually being suppressed. I heard from Bago about Brother Chi's strength, so I hope you can help the Earth tribe. If you can, then you will be the benefactor of the Earth tribe. Chi Yu said without batting an eyelid, However, I am still an outsider. I'm afraid this is not a good idea. He knew that Shirue was obviously asking for his help to make use of him. It seemed that there were some scheming people among the Alpine tribe. Shirue said, This is not a problem. Only Brother Tujia and some of his tribesmen, as well as Bago and I, know the secret. As long as we don't tell others and announce that you are a warrior of Tujia's tribe, there won't be a problem. Moreover, even if others know that Brother Chi came from the faraway Han people, you can still announce that you have joined the Earth tribe and become a warrior of the Earth tribe. Of course, I don't want to restrict Brother Chi. This knowledge is only temporary. Rose suddenly said, Brother, can you do it? Don't tell me you want him to fight Luyu? A cold light flashed in Shirue's eyes. He stared at his sister and said, We are talking business. If you dare to interrupt again, get out immediately. Rose snorted in dissatisfaction, but she did not dare to say anything more. Shirue turned his gaze to Chiyu and said, I wonder what Brother Chi thinks. Chiyu shook his head and said, I'm sorry, Chief Shirue. I think it is better for us to find the relics left behind by the gods ourselves. Shirue was stunned. He did not expect Chiyu to reject him so directly. Why? Chiyu's eyes lit up and his eyes shone with wisdom. The reason is very simple. Since the Alpine Earth tribe is the largest branch of the Earth tribe, and you are the chief of the Alpine Earth tribe, I find it hard to believe that you do not know much about the mainland, especially after you said that you have a good relationship with the great shaman of the Earth tribe. Since the great shaman is so knowledgeable, how can you not know anything? If I agree to your request, then I will just be a tool for you. If I am not wrong, you not only want to use me to help the Earth tribe achieve good results in the 4-clan hero competition, but at the same time you also want to deal with the loose tribe that harmed your son. If that is the case, why should I participate in your internal conflict? This will not do me any good. Taking a step back, even if I agreed to your request and helped the Earths achieve some results in the end, what could I do if the head shaman of your noble clan told me that he didn't know anything? After all, you have your mouths. If you don't tell me, can I still use force? I will only be used by you for nothing. I am sorry, Brother Tujia. I think I do not need to participate in the Torch Festival. I will leave the Alpine Earth tribe with my wives now. With that, he stood up and walked outside. Hearing Chiyu's words, Shirue's expression changed. In this era, the intelligence of humans was still very limited. Most humans were very simple. He did not expect that his plan would be seen through by Chiyu. Under Shirue's wise gaze, he felt as if he was naked and had nothing to hide. Stop! Shirue shouted. Immediately, a dozen or so Alpine Earth tribe warriors rushed in from outside the cave and pointed their simple stone and wooden javelins at Chiyu. Chiyu smiled calmly and said without turning his head, What? Does Chief Shirue want to use force to keep me here? It's a pity that all of you do not have the strength to do so. A dignified aura surged out from Chiyu's body. It was not a simple, dignified aura, but a powerful aura that was filled with pressure, an aura that should have been formless, but at this moment, Chiyu seemed to have become the center of the world. An irresistible pressure filled every corner of the cave, causing the Alpine Earth tribe warriors who had just entered the cave to reveal intense fear in their eyes. Not a single one of them could hold onto the javelins in their hands, and some of the weaker ones even fell to the ground under the immense pressure, their bodies trembling. Even experts like Shirue and Tujia could not withstand Chiyu's pressure. Shirue was shocked to find that Chiyu's pressure was mainly directed at him. In that instant, the ability that he had always been proud of was completely suppressed by Chiyu's aura. Chiyu did not even turn his head, and just used the pressure from his own body to completely trap Shirue's body, making it impossible for him to summon any energy. A feeling of fear rose in Shirue's heart. He finally understood that, compared to this young man who came from the Han nationality, he was far too inferior. They were not even on the same level. Brother Chiyu, Tujia, called out anxiously. Then he also could not withstand the pressure from Chiyu and could not make a sound. Chiyu slowly turned around, and a silver light flashed in each of his black eyes. All the pressure disappeared in an instant. The Alpine Earth tribe warriors fell to the ground one after another, gasping for breath. Tujia and Shirue also relaxed, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. The shock in their eyes could not be concealed. The one who had suffered the least pressure was Rose. When it came to beautiful women, Chiyu always knew how to take care of them. Chief Shirue, I just want to tell you that in this world, there are some people who can't be used, and I'm one of them. I treat Big Brother Tujia as a friend, which is why I'm being so polite today. If you still want to use force, I don't mind teaching you a deeper lesson. Shirue was not a fool. In the Alpine Earth tribe, there were very few people with his intelligence. This was also the main reason why his strength was far above that of his people. Although he had only felt the aura from Chiyu, he had already understood a lot. He hurriedly said, Brother Chi, I have no intention of using force. Don't misunderstand. Chiyu smiled and said, That's for the best. I think I will only bring trouble to the chief if I stay here. Goodbye. Seeing that Chiyu was about to leave, Shirue suddenly became anxious. Wait a minute, Brother Chi. I know the whereabouts of the miracles. Hearing this, Chiyu immediately stopped in his tracks. After all, to him, there was nothing more important than finding the Kunlun mirrors. However, Chiyu was very smart. He did not show any eagerness, and only said calmly, Are you willing to tell me now, Chief? Shirue took a deep breath. Although he was much older than Chiyu, in front of Chiyu, he realized that he was no match for him in all aspects. Just talking to him made him feel a great deal of pressure. Brother Chi, it's like this. I didn't lie to you when I said that I wasn't clear. I think you should understand how vague the relics of the gods are. I don't have any concrete evidence, so how can I explain it clearly? However, I've heard from the Grand Priest that there are a few forbidden grounds in the Yanhuang land. Even those huge beasts don't dare to enter easily. Could such a mysterious forbidden ground be related to the relics left behind by the gods? Chi frowned slightly and said, "If that's the case, where are these forbidden places? What kind of taboos are there?" Shirue said, "I don't know the specifics. I only heard the high priest vaguely mention it. Moreover, he seems to be very interested in the forbidden places, especially a forbidden place called Xuanyuan's tomb. I've heard him mention it more than once, so I thought you might be interested. Only the high priest knows the specifics. At this point, I have nothing to hide. Yes, I do have a grudge against the Luz tribe." At this point, Shirue no longer concealed his emotions, and his eyes revealed a strong hatred. Chi looked at him quietly and waited for him to continue. Shirue said, "My son was originally the hope of the Alpine tribe and even the entire tribe. When he was 10 years old, he even received a year of guidance from the high priest. Whether it was in terms of ability or intelligence, he was far superior to the rest of the tribe. At the same time, he was also my pride. However, at this time last year, when my son finally found a powerful, huge beast that could become a companion to a huge beast, he suddenly ran into danger. When we found him, only half of his body was left." Chi asked curiously, "I heard from Big Brother Tujia that when your tribe searched for a huge beast companion, they were accompanied by warriors who already had a huge beast companion. Since he was your son, didn't you protect him?" Shirue's eyes were filled with sorrow, and his eyes had unknowingly turned red. "Of course I did. That was my son. But at that time, my son had already tamed the huge beast, and the huge beast had already accepted him. I had many things to deal with in the tribe, so I returned to the tribe first. However, after a whole day, he still hadn't returned. In my anxiety, I had to go out again to look for him, but this time all I found was his corpse. Brother Chi, can you imagine how I felt at that time? I only have this one son." Chi said, "But how can you be so sure that this was done by the Lu's father and son?" Shirue clenched his fists. "Who else could it be? Lu Yu's giant beast companion is the giant beast that my son found back then. If it wasn't him, who else could it be? Although I didn't know how they did it, I was almost certain that this was a sin that they had committed. If I had evidence, I wouldn't have let them live until now. For the sake of the stability of the Alpine tribe, I had been enduring and secretly sent people to investigate. At the same time, I personally went to the tribe's headquarters to ask the high priest why such a situation would occur even though the huge beast had already agreed to become my son's companion. Later, the high priest told me that there was only one reason for this situation, and that was that the huge beast itself had become someone else's companion. Under its original master's scheme, it harmed my son. According to the reports from the spies I sent to the Luz tribe, Lu Yu, the son of Luz, already had a huge beast companion more than 2 years ago. Although this was a secret, it wasn't that no one knew about it. It was just that no one had seen what his huge beast companion looked like. With this information, I was even more certain of my judgment. Using this year's time, the subordinates I sent out gradually came back with all kinds of useful information. All kinds of clues could show the sinister intentions of the Lu's father and son. Unfortunately, I didn't have direct evidence. Otherwise, I wouldn't have waited until now. Chi said, "Since you are the chief of the Alpine tribe, the Lu's father and son are obviously trying to replace you. If that's the case, I think you have many ways to deal with them. Why do you have to look for evidence? You should know that if you want to pin a crime on someone, you can always find a way to frame them. I'm afraid that you have other reasons for being able to endure until now." "You're right. I'm the chief of the Alpine tribe, and the power I have isn't something that a single tribe can resist. However, I'm the most powerful chief of the Alpine tribe in Lusnai City. If I were to deal with him, it would definitely cause a huge commotion within the Alpine tribe. All these years, the Alpine tribe has finally developed, and I don't want our people to suffer because of internal strife. That's why I've been suppressing the pain in my heart. I don't even dare to see the father and son too often, for fear that I won't be able to control myself and do something detrimental to the entire tribe. Today, I'm asking for your help because I want you to kill the murderer of my son, Luyu. As for Luz, without his son and his ultraless companion, he won't be able to stir up any trouble. For the sake of the entire tribe, I can even leave him alone. Brothers Chi, I have too many concerns in my heart, so I have no choice but to hide some things from you. I hope you can forgive my selfishness. If you want to leave, we will definitely not stop you. Of course, we can't stop you at all. However, no matter what, please leave after participating in our torch festival. Let me do my part as a host. What do you think? Chiyu looked into Shirwei's eyes, shook his head gently and said, You're a qualified chief. Even in the face of the pain of your son's death, you can still put your people first. From this point, you're worthy of my admiration. All right, I'm willing to help you take revenge. Of course, you must fulfill your promise after this and bring me to your high priest. As for whether or not I'll help your tribe in battles in the future, it will depend on whether the information your high priest has given me is useful. He was not a utilitarian person, but if he was being used for nothing, he would definitely not do it. Shirwei did not expect that Chiyu would actually agree in the end. The main reason he asked Chiyu for help was to take revenge. As for whether or not he would help the tribe in the competition, it was secondary. Shirwei was overjoyed and said, Brothers Chi, I really don't know how to thank you. Chiyu said indifferently, There's no need to thank me. Brother Tujia, I'll go back to your tribe to rest. When the Torch Festival begins, I'll naturally represent your tribe to participate in the selection. After saying this, he walked out of the cave without looking back. Looking at the back of Chiyu, Rose could not help but show a trace of confusion in her eyes. Since she was a child, it was the first time that she saw her brother begging someone like this, and this person was so young. In this short period of time, Chiyu had left a deep impression in her heart. After Chiyu left, Shirwei suddenly sat down on the ground. At this time, he found that his body was covered with sweat. It could be seen how much pressure Chiyu had brought to him before. Brother Tujia, do you think what I did was right or wrong? Tujia said with a wry smile, Brother, you were simply playing with fire just now. Although I don't know how strong Chiyu is, judging from the 9-headed serpent he summoned that day, I'm afraid that even the strongest warrior in our tribe is no match for him. However, I can feel that he is a very sincere person. Only when you treat him sincerely will you get his help. Shirue blushed with shame as she said, I understand. Big brother Tujia, I was too rash before. Chiyu returned to Wenting and Snow Girl and told them everything that happened in the cave. After listening to Chiyu's words, Wenting felt a little strange and said, Since they wanted to use you at that time, why did you agree in the end? Chiyu smiled and said, From the 3 words, Xianyuan tomb, don't you think of anything? Wenting's eyes lit up. Snow Girl, who was beside her, also revealed a surprised look. The 2 girls said almost at the same time, Xianyuan sword? Chiyu made a shushing gesture and said, Be quiet, both of you. If Xianyuan tomb really exists, it is very likely that the most powerful of the 10 divine weapons, the Xianyuan sword, is preserved there. It is also the divine sword that Huang Emperor used to kill Chiyu. Since the 2 tribe are the descendants of Huang Emperor, it is very normal for their high priest to always think about the Xianyuan sword. When Ting said, Chiyu, are you all right? Chiyu was stunned and said, Ah? What do you mean? When Ting said angrily, What we need now is the Kunlun mirrors, not the Xianyuan sword. No matter how powerful the Xianyuan sword is, it can't send us home. Don't you understand? Greedy guy. Chiyu laughed and said, A man who is never content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Everyone is greedy. This is a very normal thing. That is the Xianyuan sword. Just the name alone is enough to make my imagination run wild. Of course, I am interested in this Xianyuan tomb because of the Kunlun mirrors. Since it is also one of the 10 divine weapons, then Xianyuan tomb is very likely to have information about other divine weapons. Snow Girl said coldly, That is only your wishful thinking. Chiyu said maybe. More importantly, since the high priest knows about a few forbidden areas, if we can get his help, perhaps there will be the existence of the Kunlun mirrors in these forbidden areas. Therefore, we must go to the headquarters of the Earth Tribe. However, in this era, it is difficult for us to even find a sense of direction, so how can we find the route to the Earth Tribe? Now, we can only rely on the Alpine Native Tribe, which is why I agreed to Shirwei's request. At the same time, I can see that Shirwei is a qualified tribe leader, so it's not a bad thing to avenge him. I also hate that guy called Luyu. You should have seen that his giant beast companion is clearly a ferocious beast. When Ting said, "You make the decision. Since you think it is possible, I have no objections." Snow Girl glanced at Chiyu and simply closed her eyes. Obviously, she did not want to participate in the discussion. Chapter 125. At this time, all 36 tribes of the Alpine Native Tribe had arrived at the basin, under the arrangement of Shirwei's clansmen. They neatly surrounded the center of the basin. There were many piles of firewood in each tribe, and in the center of the basin there was a huge pile of firewood that was 10 meters high and 30 meters in diameter. Obviously, that was the main bonfire. Some of the surrounding bonfires had begun to burn. The Alpine Native Tribe of each tribe took out all kinds of food that they had brought and began to make the final preparations. When Shirwei arrived at the center of the basin, it was already late at night. The surrounding torches and bonfires of each tribe had already been ignited. With the appearance of Shirwei, loud cheers sounded. Obviously, these Alpine Native Tribe people were very supportive of their chief. Shirwei's face was very calm, as if nothing had happened. He walked to the huge pile of firewood in the center of the basin and stopped. At this time, Tu Jie had also returned to his tribe. Rose followed behind Shirwei. At this time, she had already changed into a leopard skin outfit. However, the leopard skin was pitifully little. Most of her round thighs and plump breasts were exposed. Coupled with her alluring beauty, the young people of the Alpine Native Tribe immediately cheered even more wildly. Shirwei said in a loud voice, "Good, this year is a year of harvest." The population of the 36 tribes of the Alpine Native Tribe has increased a lot. At the same time, the number of attacks by giant beasts has decreased. The annual Torch Festival is a day of celebration for the Alpine Native Tribe and also a day of celebration for the entire Alpine Native Tribe. I won't say much. Children, let us use the happiest laughter to welcome the great Torch Festival. Use your sincerity to ask for the protection of God. Use your most sincere feelings to find your lover. I, Shirwei, as the chief of the Alpine Native Tribe, declare the official start of the Torch Festival. With the help of his own energy, his voice spread to every corner of the basin and clearly entered the ears of every Alpine Native Tribe member. As soon as his voice fell, cheers sounded. Shirwei threw the torch in his hand into the huge pile of firewood. The flames rose and the huge pile of firewood gradually burned. The elders, women, and children of each tribe were sitting around the fire. Some were eating, some were preparing various kinds of food. The young men and women of the Alpine Native Tribe had already begun to dance their unique dance. Accompanied by loud cheers, the whole basin suddenly became lively. Each of them held a torch in their hand, shouting and dancing happily. The Torch Festival is a festival to thank God for giving us the fire seed. With fire, we can have today's development. Tu Jie had already come to Chiyu's side. The surrounding people were all dancing. At this time, the young people of the Alpine Native Tribe had already gone crazy. The thing that Chiyu was worried about had happened. Many women of the Alpine Native Tribe came to invite Chiyu to dance with them. Since Chiyu had publicly declared that when Ting and Snow Girl were his wives, no young man came to harass them. Fortunately, Snow Girl released her icy aura in time, scaring away the girls who came to invite Chiyu. Otherwise, Chiyu might have already been surrounded by thousands of flowers. Chiyu asked, "When does it start?" Of course, Tu Jie knew what he was referring to. He lowered his voice and said, "The Torch Festival is a festival of celebration. I'm afraid it will be lively for a long time. The warriors who are participating in the selection have already gone to prepare. When the central bonfire is extinguished, that will be the time for the selection. When the bonfire is still burning, it will be our time to celebrate." Chiyu smiled and said, "Big brother Tujia, you should go and have some fun. Since it will be a while before it starts, I'll eat something first." It hadn't been too long since they came to this era. Although the barbecue techniques of the Alpine natives were a little crude, the meat quality of the wild beasts in this era was really too good. Perhaps it was because they hadn't been polluted in any way. They only needed to apply some simple mineral salt to roast the meat into delicious barbecue. Chiyu enjoyed the barbecue so much that he forgot to go home. The moment the bonfire was lit, the cheers of more than 100,000 people were really infectious. Even Chiyu and the others couldn't help but feel their blood boiling. However, the way that Chiyu and Wenting expressed their excitement was very simple. They turned their excitement into appetite and ate around the bonfire. Only Snow Girl sat quietly beside them. It was unknown if she was influenced by Chiyu and Wenting, but now, although Snow Girl only ate fruits, her appetite was much bigger than when Chiyu and Wenting first met her. "Why do you only know how to eat? Would you like to dance with me?" A clear voice sounded in Chiyu's ears. He was stunned for a moment. When he looked up, he saw that Rose had come to his side. The cold breath of Snow Girl seemed to have little effect on her. Although Wenting did not look at Chiyu, when Rose just talked to him, Chiyu immediately felt that Wenting's breath was a little strange. He could not help but show a wry smile and said to Rose, "I'm more interested in eating. Miss Rose, please." At this moment, the leaf on Wenting's head suddenly, coincidentally, fell, revealing her white skin and elegant face. Wenting slightly tilted her head and glanced at Rose. Rose also saw him at the same time. The next moment, Rose almost left Chiyu's side at the fastest speed. Although the stars were willing to surround the moon, if it was just a firefly, it was the best choice to stay away from the moon. Otherwise, its faint light would be completely ignored. Time ticked by. When the bonfire in the center was finally extinguished, the cheering crowd in the basin gradually calmed down. Chiyu discovered that the number of people from the various tribes had decreased significantly. Some of the young men and women who had been dancing merrily had already disappeared. There was no need to ask to know what they had gone to do. Chiyu glanced at Wenting and thought to himself that it would be great if Tingting was also willing to have a wild sex with him. When Chiyu looked at Wenting, Wenting turned back and saw his lascivious eyes. She blushed and said, "What are you looking at?" Chiyu smiled and stroked Wenting's face with his right hand. Then he showed his hand in front of Wenting and said, "Look, there is a piece of meat on your face. Look at you, your hands are greasy." Wenting said angrily, "It's like you don't eat enough. Give me some water to wash it." Chiyu smiled bitterly and said, "Isn't it a bit?" Wenting rolled her eyes at him and said, "Hurry up. I still want to eat some fruits." Chiyu looked at her dumbfoundedly. He was already full, and when they were fighting, Wenting ate no less than him. But now she still wanted to eat fruits. Chiyu's eyes fell on Wenting's flat belly and said to himself, "Be careful not to become a big fatso." Wenting showed her little fist to Chiyu and said, "Am I fat?" Chiyu smiled and said, "You don't need to know. Why don't you let me hug you and feel it?" Although he was teasing her, his hands were already glowing with blue light. The blue light spun like a whirlpool. When it passed by Wenting's skin, it had already helped her take away the grease on her hands and the corner of her mouth. Shirwei had already returned to the center of the field, and Luce and his son had walked over at the same time. Although the bonfire in the center had already been extinguished, the center of the basin was still very bright under the illumination of the torches that were still burning. Luce said in a clear voice, "Today is the Torch Festival. At the same time, it is also the day where we select warriors to represent the Highland tribe in the 4-clan hero competition. I, Chief Luce of the Luce tribe, recommend my son, Luyu, to represent the Highland tribe in the competition. If anyone is willing to challenge my son, then please step forward now." The monster that Luyu was riding on let out a low roar, and an invisible energy aura spread to the surroundings. The huge wings flapped, and the surrounding flames suddenly dimmed. The basin that was no longer noisy became even quieter. All the people of the Alpine native tribe who were still present had their eyes focused on the center of the field. Shirwei looked at Luce indifferently. He was not angry that the other party had usurped his position, but a faint, cold light flashed in the depths of his eyes. Chiyu knew that it was time for him to show up. Although his skin was slightly different from the Highland tribes, the darkness of the night was the best cover. He did not want to waste too much time, so he was the first to step forward. Wasn't it better to solve the problem as soon as possible? Since Lu Yu dared to participate in the selection with such an attitude, it was obvious that he was the strongest among all the Highland tribe warriors who had a giant beast as a partner. Instead of waiting for others to test him, it was better to solve the problem directly. Chi Yu of the 2 Jia tribe challenge. Following his standard Highland tribe speech, Chi Yu had already walked out of the 2 Jia tribe. There was some distance between the 2 Jia tribe and the center of the basin. Chi Yu did not use his ability, but he walked toward the center step by step. Every step he took was very solid, and his calm eyes were always focused on Luyu. Although Chi Yu's movements were not fast, the expressions of the people in the center of the basin changed slightly. Shirwei showed a happy smile, but Luce's expression became serious. The one who felt it the most was Luyu, who was being stared at by Chi Yu. Others might not be able to feel anything from Chi Yu, but Luyu could feel it very clearly. Although Chi Yu was not walking fast, his body seemed to have merged with everything around him, so Luyu could not see him clearly. At the same time, with every step Chi Yu took, Luyu could clearly feel the pressure on his body increasing. Even the winged lizard he was riding was roaring uneasily, and its powerful front claws left deep marks on the ground. Chi Yu only stopped when he was 20 meters away from Luyu. Luce could not help but ask, "Are you from the 2 Jia tribe? Why haven't I seen you before?" Chi Yu smiled indifferently and said, "There are hundreds of thousands of us from the Alpine native tribe. Do you think Chief Luce can remember everyone's face? I am a warrior from the 2 Jia tribe. Whether it is the chief or the chief of the 2 Jia tribe, they can all prove it." Shirwei nodded and said, "That's right. Chi Yu is a warrior under 2 Jia tribe. His ability is outstanding, and he is a suitable candidate to participate in the selection. Since he has issued a challenge, let's begin immediately. Giant beast partners have no eyes when attacking. Both parties, please pay attention to your safety." As he spoke, he gave Chi Yu a cold look, then turned around and walked towards his tribe. Although Luce had a deep conflict with Shirwei in the dark, Shirwei was the chief of the Alpine native tribe after all. Since he had already said so, Luce could not say anything else. He gave his son a look and left quietly. At this time, only Chi Yu and Lu Yu were left in the center of the arena, staring at each other from afar. Lu Yu looked at Chi Yu coldly. He naturally understood what his father meant. He had never seen this young man named Chi Yu before, but in his mind he must be a warrior trained by Shirwei and 2 Jia. Luce naturally wanted to destroy this person with his own hands and not give Shirwei any chance to make a comeback. As long as he could achieve good results in the 4-clan hero competition, Luce's position in the Alpine native tribe would gradually surpass Shirwei's. When the next chief election came, he might very well replace Shirwei. "Where is your giant beast partner?" Lu Yu asked in a deep voice. He sat on the back of his winged monitor lizard. Although he did not have any weapons, his body had already emitted a strong aura, resisting the invisible pressure that Chi Yu brought to him. Chi Yu's mind was racing. Ever since he accepted the White Lady as his master, He had begun to absorb the energy of the blue sea thunder pearl and the rock in his body according to the method of the deep sea nether snake. These energies were integrated by him, and after continuous absorption and filtration, they formed an even thundercloud force that combined with his own thundercloud force. Although his body had reached a new height after the transformation of the source of nature, these energies were still too strong. Over the past few days, Chiyu's strength had fully recovered to the four clouds level. He only needed to cultivate for a while more before he could absorb all the energy. The winged monitor lizard in front of him seemed to have a cultivation of about 4,000 to 6,000 years, and Luyu, who was on its back, was completely negligible in Chiyu's eyes. Although the monitor lizard looked very strong, it was obviously not a superior beast. At most, it was a middle-level beast. To deal with such a beast, Chiyu was confident that he could do it with his current strength. However, if he used his own strength to destroy Luyu, it would definitely cause an uproar. After all, the strength that he had shown was too shocking. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, a silver light flashed in Chiyu's eyes, and the huge aura of the deep-sea nether snake had quietly appeared. Dark blue and dark purple light condensed in front of Chiyu. With a low roar, the deep-sea nether snake's huge body gradually stretched out. When Chiyu first saw the deep-sea nether snake, its body was 100 meters long. Later, after its 9 heads recovered, the deep-sea nether snake had always kept its body length within 40 meters due to its lack of energy. At this time, under Chiyu's instructions, the deep-sea nether snake's body expanded greatly. In the blink of an eye, it had become more than 70 meters long. When Chiyu absorbed the energy of the blue sea thunder bead, he did not forget about the deep-sea nether snake. Because he wanted to purify the energy of the blue sea thunder bead, he had to filter out some of the impure energy. The impure energy was very suitable for the deep-sea nether snake, so he simply absorbed all of it. After continuous conversion of his own energy, the deep-sea nether snake's strength had recovered to between 30% to 40% of its peak state. After all, he was now on land. Under the effect of the natural source, he was no longer confined to the sea. Chiyu floated up and landed on the deep-sea nether snake's big head, looking at it from afar. The body of the giant lizard was not small. Its wingspan was 7 to 8 meters, and its body length was close to 10 meters. However, compared to the body of the deep-sea nether serpent, which was 70 meters long and had 9 heads, the difference was too big. When the deep-sea nether snake first appeared, Lu Yu's expression changed drastically. Initially, he was looking down at Chiyu, but when the deep-sea nether snake raised its head, Chiyu was already looking down at it from 20 meters in the air. The huge pressure that a superior vicious beast brought to a middle-rank vicious beast made the giant lizard with 6,000 years of cultivation roar uneasily. Its huge body had already begun to retreat quietly. Snakes were the lizard's natural enemies, and the deep-sea nether snake was the best among snakes. Its 18 eyes emitted a cold gaze. The battle did not need to take place, and the surrounding alpine native tribe people knew who won and who lost. Of course, Chiyu knew that it would take a long time for the deep-sea nether serpent to recover to its peak strength. However, against this lizard, Chiyu knew that it would take a long time. However, some deterrence was enough to deal with this giant lizard. A faint silver light slowly flowed around Chiyu's body, and his gaze gradually became fierce. Kirin's aura was cleverly hidden by Chiyu, but the pressure that was emitted from above still made Lu Yu's heart turn cold. Lu Yu obviously felt the deep-sea nether snake's power, but he could not retreat at this time. If he admitted defeat without even putting up a fight, his status among the alpine native tribe would definitely plummet. By that time, perhaps the loose tribe would never be able to rise again. Thinking of this, Lu Yu forced himself to focus. His hands quickly tapped on the back of the winged lizard. In his mind, he was not at a complete disadvantage. After all, his giant lizard was a variant of the ferocious beasts and had the ability to fly. As long as it faced the snake in the air, it would at least occupy an invincible position. The giant lizard's huge wings flapped violently. Just when the torches in the basin were almost extinguished, the giant lizard's body had already risen into the air. The huge body had already soared into the sky. Although the speed of its flight was not fast, it was still able to bring its huge body into the sky. Chi-Yu did not stop Lu-Yu and the giant lizard from flying. As he watched the giant lizard fly higher and higher, he could not help but show a hint of disdain. As the saying went, "Heaven's wrongs can be forgiven, but one's own wrongs are the hardest to bear. Aren't you flying? All right, then I'll let you fly to your heart's content." The wind in the air began to fluctuate violently, and one could vaguely see green vortexes constantly spinning in the air, bombarding towards Chi-Yu from all directions. After all, Lu-Yu was considered a smart person among the Alpine native tribe. He knew that the deep-sea nether snake was very difficult to deal with. Only by killing Chi-Yu would he be able to achieve the final victory. Perhaps he could even get another giant beast partner and keep Chi-Yu as his own. Therefore, he urged the giant lizard to launch an attack, and it was completely aimed at Chi-Yu, who was on the snake's head. However, he did not know that the most dangerous thing was not the snake, but the person who controlled the snake. An attack of wind energy? Chi-Yu looked at the vortexes with a strong cutting force in contempt. He did not even move. At that moment, his body seemed to have become one with nature, and also seemed to have become one with the deep-sea nether snake. A faint green light radiated from him and the deep-sea nether snake. When the wind in the air touched Chi-Yu's body, it suddenly disappeared. Chi-Yu's body did not even move, as if nothing had happened. The source of nature did not only transform Chi-Yu's body, but the fruit of the King of God had also turned Chi-Yu's body into the source of nature. In theory, water, fire, earth, and wind were all natural energies. If one wanted to use the energy of nature to hurt Chi-Yu, it would only be possible if one's strength was far above Chi-Yu's. In other words, any natural energy attack on Chi-Yu would be weakened by Chi-Yu's own aura to a certain extent. Lu-Yu had used the winged giant lizard to test the waters. This kind of energy was no different than a tickle to Chi-Yu. The deep-sea nether snake's 9 heads were raised at the same time, waiting for Chi-Yu's order. It had also been a long time since it showed its strength. Ever since Chi-Yu took it as an envoy, it had been very depressed. When Chi-Yu became the source of nature, it regained its 9-headed body, and the situation changed. With 9 heads, he would be able to recover his energy at an extremely fast rate. What's more, it had Chi-Yu's help. All vicious beasts like to fight, and it was no exception. At this time, facing an enemy that was obviously not as strong as itself, who wouldn't know how to beat a dog when it was down? Chi-Yu originally wanted to let the deep-sea nether snake show off its strength to hide its strength. The deep-sea nether snake was not his giant beast partner, but his envoy. Giant beast partners communicated through some special communication methods. Chi-Yu and the deep-sea nether snake were connected. There was nothing closer than their relationship. Chi-Yu just had to use his mind, and the deep-sea nether snake already understood what he meant. The 18 snake eyes lit up at the same time. The purple snake eyes shone with a cold light in the night, and it was so clear. Circles of invisible energy spread around wildly. The deep-sea nether snake's energy had begun to play a full role. A blue barrier appeared above Chi-Yu's body, and the transparent blue light looked very clear. It was the defensive energy in the form of water energy. At this time, the winged giant lizard in the air had begun to attack again. When Lu-Yu saw the huge snake eyes lit up below, he felt a strong sense of uneasiness. His hands kept patting the giant lizard's head as if he was having cramp. The giant lizard opened its mouth and spat out a mouthful of purple mucus. The mucus was condensed into the shape of an arrow by the wind energy in the air. With a sharp whistling sound, it almost flashed and arrived above Chi-Yu's head. Through observation, Chi-Yu could tell that this lizard possessed at least 2 attributes. Wind was only one of them, while the other attribute was likely corrosion. This could be seen from the mucus that usually dripped from its mouth. This mouthful of purple mucus was spat out under the effect of the wind energy. It was obvious that this was the lizard's true strength. Seeing that the opponent's attack was about to arrive, the deep-sea nether snake let out a deep roar, and the 9 snake heads moved at the same time. Other than the head in the center, the other 8 snake heads formed the strongest barrier above Chiyu's head like stars surrounding the moon. Just as Chiyu expected, the purple energy arrow passed through the deep-sea nether snake's water energy defense barrier and only paused for a moment before it continued to fly toward him. At this time, the deep-sea nether snake's 8 snake heads were just in place. Corrosion ability. The deep-sea nether serpent couldn't help but sneer inwardly. As one of the 3 great clans of the fierce beast world, the deep-sea nether serpent clan was also proficient in corrosive techniques in addition to their powerful water attribute energy. Of course, their corrosive ability came directly from their venom. Chi-Yu had almost died to its corrosive venom back then, so how could it be afraid of the 2-winged lizard's corrosive attack? The snake head on the far left opened its mouth slightly, and a bolt of purple lightning suddenly shot out. Amidst a loud bang, the opponent's purple energy arrow instantly disappeared. At the same time, the winged lizard in the air was unforgiving. Feeling that it had the upper hand, under Luyu's command, it kept spitting out streams of corrosive venom and energy arrows that were a combination of wind energy. Lightning was the righteousness of heaven and earth. It was the best way to deal with these evil abilities. This was also why the deep-sea nether snake and Chi-Yu were so afraid when they encountered the perfect thunderstorm. At this time, the deep-sea nether snake had the ability to use lightning. Seeing that the giant lizard in the air kept spitting out corrosive venom, it calmly spat out lightning. It did not attack the opponent, but it accurately dissolved the attack of the giant lizard. Lu Yu is still very experienced in actual combat. When he saw the deep-sea nether snake using lightning to deal with the 2-winged lizard's attack, he cleverly urged the 2-winged lizard to fly higher, using gravity to increase the attack power of the corrosive venom arrow. Moreover, the further the distance, it could also weaken the deep-sea nether snake's lightning ability, so there was no need to worry about the deep-sea nether snake suddenly launching an attack. However, after launching a few rounds of attacks, Lu Yu already felt that something was wrong. For some reason, the surrounding air seemed to be a little cold, and an oppressive feeling constantly came from all directions to his body. Even the body of the 2-winged lizard had become a little slow. For some reason, when Lu Yu panicked and felt where the oppressive feeling came from, the originally dark sky suddenly lit up. It was the light of lightning. Although it was only a slight flash, it allowed Lu Yu and the people of the Alpine tribe below to see large patches of dark clouds in the sky. As the lightning flashed, the sound of rolling thunder could be heard. As the dark clouds in the sky rubbed against each other, the invisible pressure became even greater. The wind was blowing gently, but the lightning seemed to be accumulating energy as it fluctuated slowly. Lu Yu suddenly noticed the dark clouds and lightning in the sky, and he immediately realized that something was wrong. The giant snake below was using the ability of lightning. This was obviously caused by it, and it could trigger a celestial phenomenon. How could he resist it? At this time, Lu Yu no longer had any desire to win. He immediately urged the 2-winged lizard to fly diagonally to the side, trying to leave the area covered by the dark clouds. The deep-sea nether snake's 18-snake eyes revealed a cold light. "Want to run? Is it too late?" A purple halo surrounded the huge body of the deep-sea nether snake. In the dark night, it seemed to be full of a terrifying aura. Then, a huge thunder suddenly sounded in the sky, and the dark clouds were completely revealed under the illumination of countless flashing lightning. A fierce roar came from the mouth of the deep-sea nether snake. Almost in an instant, hundreds of lightning bolts came crashing down, and Lu Yu and his giant lizard were the core of all the lightning. At this time, Lu Yu controlled the two-winged lizard to fly above the heads of Chi Yu and the deep-sea nether snake, and had not yet flown away. How fast was the speed of lightning? Even the flying speed of the golden-winged eagle could not be compared to it. Seeing this scene, Chi Yu could not help but laugh. This move of the deep-sea nether snake was clearly imitating his own Kirin's 100 lightning strikes. However, its lightning energy was obviously not as smooth as his own Kirin's thundercloud force, so it needed to use the celestial phenomenon to accumulate energy before launching an attack. However, it was enough to deal with the two guys in the sky. There was no need to destroy them. As long as the giant lizard lost its ability to fly, they would fall from their current height. Not to mention flesh and blood. Even if they were made of steel, they would be turned into discus. The unlucky two-winged lizard did not even have the chance to dodge, and it became the target of the lightning. In the loud bang, it did not even have the chance to scream. Its huge body had already fallen from the sky. Its wings were completely broken under the special care of the deep-sea nether snake. At the same time, the scales on its body had completely turned black. Chapter 126. Lu Yu's body gradually grew from a dark yellow dot of light. Chi Yu's expression changed slightly. He knew that it was easy for him to dodge, but it was impossible for him to dodge the deep-sea nether snake's huge body. He did not want the deep-sea nether snake, who he had worked so hard to establish a friendship with, to suffer any harm. Kirin's ability was only revealed at this moment. The black and silver lights rotated and rose from the center of the 8 snake heads. Under the effect of the powerful energy, the deep-sea nether snake's 8 heads swung around at the same time. Chi Yu, who had his right fist raised high, looked majestic as he stood on the red snake head in the center of the deep-sea nether snake under the night wind. Everything was over. The winged monitor lizard's body was blasted hundreds of meters away by the deep-sea nether snake's bombardment and fell heavily to the ground. Its human companion, Lu Yu, had disappeared from this world forever. The winged monitor lizard's body was indeed very strong. It did not die immediately after falling from such a height. Its huge body kept rolling on the ground, leaving shocking marks. Chi Yu sighed in his heart. He had to show his strength to solve the problem. His silver eyes focused on the winged monitor lizard, and the Kirin pearl on his chest shone brightly. A layer of dark red light floated out and enveloped the winged monitor lizard's huge body. The Devour skill did not disappear because Chi Yu had restored Kirin's arm. How could he let go of such a 6,000-year-old vicious beast's energy? Even after filtering, a part of it could be absorbed for his own use. He only needed to absorb it for a period of time. Silence. The entire basin had fallen into complete silence. From the beginning to the end of the battle, it had only been a few minutes. Chi Yu had only attacked once from the beginning to the end, but Lu Yu and his giant beast companion had been completely destroyed. Son! Lu screamed and rushed out of his tribe. He didn't care how powerful the deep-sea nether snake's energy was, and went straight for Chi Yu. With a flash of light, the huge body of the deep-sea nether snake had returned to Chi Yu's body through the Kirin orb. Chi Yu stepped on the magical Kirin orb and easily avoided Lu's attack. With a few flashes, he had returned to Tu Jie's tribe. On the surface, the two-winged monitor lizard's carcass did not seem to have changed much from the creation network, but its internal energy had been forcibly extracted by Chi Yu. Chi Yu realized that this double-winged monitor lizard wasn't as powerful as he had imagined. It didn't even have an NEI pill. It probably only had wings under special circumstances. He had already done what he needed to do, and he didn't need to worry about the rest. Behind him, Wen Ting and Snow Girl left the scene quietly under the guidance of Shirwei's subordinates. They came to a dry cave. The basin was in chaos, and even the entire Alpine native tribe was in chaos. However, this had nothing to do with Chi Yu. After returning to the cave, he gave Wen Ting a few simple instructions and immediately went into cultivation. To him, nothing was more important than cultivation. The chaos in the Alpine native tribe lasted for a full 10 days before it gradually calmed down. After all, Luce was not the chief. Under Shirway suppression, he couldn't cause any more trouble. A year ago, Shirway's grief over the loss of his son had also appeared on Luce. The death of his son had caused him to lose all hope. In the end, he still brought his people back to his tribe. From then on, Luce's tribe never recovered. They no longer had the power to compete with Chief Shirway's first tribe. In the cave where Chiyu lived. Chiyu, I'm so bored. Are we still going to continue cultivating? Wen Ting shook Chiyu's arm. She said with slight annoyance. They had already stayed in the cave for 10 days. Perhaps it was because she had been half imprisoned in an ice cellar when she was in Yanhuang Seoul. But Snow Girl didn't mind the loneliness. However, Wen Ting had been cultivating ever since she came to this era. These few days were really boring. She couldn't help but complain when Chiyu had just woken up from his cultivation. Chiyu pulled Wen Ting's hand and said, "Ting Ting, why don't I take you out for a walk?" Wen Ting nodded lightly and said, "All right, let's go out for a walk. I don't know when the 4 Tribes Hero Conference will start. Chiyu, why don't we just leave this place?" Chiyu said, "I also thought about leaving. After all, I'm not sure if the Xianyuan tomb that Shirue mentioned exists. However, in this era, we are unfamiliar with the people and the place. In addition, I have the ability to improve my abilities in a short period of time, so I decided to stay. At least we can cultivate here without worry. Let's wait a little longer. Even if we want to leave, we have to wait until I have completely filtered and absorbed the energy in my body. At that time, we will at least have the ability to protect ourselves. Hey, someone's coming." As soon as Chiyu's voice fell, he saw Shirue walking in from outside. Together with him was his sister, Rose. "Brothers Chi." Shirue smiled and greeted Chiyu. Chiyu said, "Chief, are you done with the matters of your tribe?" Shirue smiled and said, "This time, Luce will never be able to make a comeback. Lu Yu is dead, and he has lost his greatest support. Brothers Chi, I haven't had the chance to thank you yet." Chiyu waved his hand and said, "There's no need to thank me. I just want to know how long it will take before we can go to the headquarters of the earthly tribe." Shirue said, "I came to find you because of this. There are still 3 months before the 4-clan hero competition. I know that you are anxious to find the heavenly god's ruins, so I came to find you. I'm prepared to bring you to the headquarters of the earthly tribe." Speaking until here, he sighed and said, "To be honest, from a selfish point of view, I really want to keep you for 3 months. Please represent the Alpine earthly tribe in the competition. But after careful consideration, I can only keep you once, but I can't keep you forever. If the Alpine earthly tribe wants to become stronger, we can only rely on our own strength. So I've thought it through. As long as you are willing, we can leave at any time. When we arrive at the headquarters of the earthly tribe, I'll ask the high priest to tell you about the heavenly god's ruins. That way, we won't owe each other anything." Chiyu took a deep look at Shirue. He couldn't help but have a good impression of this chief. He nodded and said, "Then I'll have to trouble Chief. If that's the case, let's leave tomorrow." "Brother, I'll go with you too, okay?" "I haven't been back to the earthly tribe for a long time," Rose said in a sweet voice. Although she was talking to Shirue, her eyes were always on Chiyu. The strength that Chiyu displayed when he destroyed Lu Yu was too terrifying. The Genesis Network was full of curiosity about this mysterious young man. Although she was once frightened by Wen Ting's beauty, she had always been generous and did not give up the plan to explore the mystery of Chiyu. Shirue frowned and said, "You're not allowed to go. Little girl, you're not young anymore. If you continue to act so crazily every day, you won't be able to survive. I'll see how you're going to get married in the future." "Brother," Rose said in a dissatisfied voice. Shirue shook his head and said, "I said no means no." "All right, Brother Chiyu, we're leaving. Please get ready. I'll send someone to call you tomorrow morning. and then we'll go to the headquarters of the earthly tribe together. After that, he directly pulled the dissatisfied Rose out of the cave where Chi-Yu lived. No one knew his sister better than him. Although Chi-Yu was outstanding, he also felt danger from Chi-Yu. After all, the strength that Chi-Yu had displayed was too strong. He didn't want anything to happen between his sister and Chi-Yu. Wen-Ting laughed and said, "I didn't know. Even Black Rose likes you. I really don't know what's so good about you." Chi-Yu laughed and said, "Don't you think that I, your husband, am very handsome?" Wen-Ting stuck out her tongue at Chi-Yu and said, "Who's your wife? Are you married?" Chi-Yu scratched his head. This was really a problem. If he could really return to his own era, who would he marry? He didn't want any of his women to be wronged. The next morning, Chi-Yu brought Wen-Ting, Snow Girl, and Shi-Rue out of the Alpine tribe. In the end, Shi-Rue did not bring his sister. He only brought Ba-Ge and 10 other Alpine tribe warriors as guards. Originally, Shi-Rue wanted to let 2 Jie go with them, but considering that 2 Jie had to go back to his tribe, he had to give up. Before Chi-Yu left, he left some simple cultivation methods for Toussaint. He had a good impression of that simple and honest child. After leaving the basin of the largest tribe of the Alpine tribe, a group of more than 10 people moved quickly in one direction. In the beginning, Shi-Rue was worried that Wen-Ting and Snow Girl would not be able to keep up with their speed, so he wanted them to sit on Ba-Ge's Black Tiger. But after traveling for half a day, he finally understood that there was always someone better than him. There was not even a drop of sweat on the faces of Wen-Ting and Snow Girl. They did not look like they were in a hurry. They looked like they were on a sightseeing trip. It might be fast for ordinary people, but it did not affect them at all. Ba-Ge now worshipped Chi-Yu very much, mainly because Chi-Yu had taught Liu a lesson. His original dominance had disappeared, and he pestered Chi-Yu along the way, insisting that Chi-Yu be his disciple. But Chi-Yu was not from this era, so he politely declined in the end. He only occasionally pointed out a few mistakes in Ba-Ge's cultivation. Just this alone was already very beneficial to Ba-Ge. Through the conversation with Shi-Rue, Chi-Yu gradually gained a deeper understanding of the situation in this era of the ancient beasts. Now, the 5 major tribes of the human race were located in different directions of the Yanhuang land. The Tu tribe was located in the center of the entire Yanhuang land. The Alpine Tu tribe was located in the east, quite a distance from the headquarters of the Tu tribe. Instead, they were closer to the White tribe in the east. As for the other tribes, they were located in different directions. The Jili people, the common enemy of the other 4 tribes, were located in the west of the Yanhuang land. Chi-Yu continued to cultivate on the way. In order to better cultivate, he summoned the deep-sea nether snake from the second day. He, Wen-Ting, and the Snow Girl sat on the back of the deep-sea nether snake. The Snow Girl and Wen-Ting looked at the surrounding scenery and protected him, while he quietly cultivated on the back of the deep-sea nether snake. In the past few days, Chi-Yu had clearly felt that his ability was about to have a breakthrough. Although he did not know when the breakthrough would be, as long as his energy continued to grow, the time for the breakthrough would eventually come. Therefore, he was not in a hurry. He just quietly cultivated. With many previous experiences, the current Chi-Yu had become much more mature. They used 4 days to leave the mountain range and began to enter the hinterland of the Yanhuang land. As they walked, Chi-Yu did not cultivate. His cultivation had reached a bottleneck, and breaking through it was not something that could be done overnight. Therefore, he simply relaxed a little and chatted with Shi-Rue and Ba-Ge. "Chief, are we now in the central part of the Yanhuang land?" Chi-Yu asked with a smile. Shi-Rue said barely, "We have already been out for 7 days. The Yanhuang land is vast and full of resources. The mountain range where the Alpine tribe lives is in the central east, and we are now at the edge of the central part. I estimate that in another 10 days or so, with our current speed, we can reach the headquarters of the Alpine tribe." Chi-Yu said, "Chief, I don't understand. Since the rulers of this era are those huge beasts, Why can the Alpine tribe live in the central part of the Yan Huang land? Don't the mythical beasts and ferocious beasts want to occupy that place? Shi Rue smiled mysteriously and said in a low voice, "From a certain point of view, those huge beasts see us humans as their vassals. To them, we humans are really too weak. Therefore, they're not too interested in our lives. At the same time, our tribes that have survived have their own secrets. For example, the reason why the Alpine tribe can survive in the mountains is mainly because we have the protection of the guardian mystical beast. That is why we have never been attacked by other huge beasts. The headquarters of the Alpine tribe is the same. To tell you the truth, our high priest is the strongest among the warriors of the Alpine tribe. His huge beast companion is the protector of the entire Alpine tribe. It is because of his existence that the Alpine tribe can be protected in the central part of the Yan Huang land and not be harmed by other huge beasts. Oh, then can I know what the guardian mystical beast of the Alpine tribe and the guardian mystical beast of the Alpine tribe are?" Wen Ting asked curiously. Shi Rue thought about it and said, "The guardian mystical beast of the Alpine tribe is a huge, white, flood dragon in the mountains. We do not know where it lives, but we know that it is the strongest in our mountain range. As long as the other huge beasts in the surroundings sense its aura, they do not dare to enter the range of the mountain range. This allows us to live a relatively peaceful life." Hearing Shi Rue say this, Chiyu, Wen Ting, and the Snow Girl could not help but look at each other. He was obviously talking about the white snake. However, the white snake had now become Chiyu's slave and had been abducted. If Shi Rue knew that the guardian mystical beast had been taken away by Chiyu, who knew what he would think? However, the matter had already been settled. Even if Chiyu wanted to help Shi Rue, there was nothing he could do. Who asked the deep-sea nether snake to be so deeply in love with the white snake? Coughing, Chiyu asked, "Then what is the guardian mystical beast of the Alpine tribe? Will it be more powerful?" Shi Rue's eyes revealed a trace of reverence as he said, "I'm sorry, Brother Chi. Although I know about this, I cannot tell you. This is the top secret of the Alpine tribe. I can only say that the guardian mystical beast of the Earth tribe, the great shaman's giant beast companion, is one of the most powerful giant beasts in the world. At the same time, it is also the representative of peace, the guardian mystical beast of the Earth tribe." As they spoke, they had already crossed a plain and entered a hilly area. The era of the ancient giant beasts was indeed an era without any pollution. Even in the hilly area, it was still surrounded by greenery. The air was so clear that one could smell the fragrance of plants and soil when breathing in. Ba Gus said, "Chief, let's rest for a while. I'm hungry." Shi Rue nodded and directed the warriors of his tribe to find a relatively flat place to stop. They took out all kinds of food from their bags and sat together to rest for a while. Chiyu did not understand the seasons of this era. He only felt that the weather was very hot. However, as long as they were in a shady place, the heat would be greatly reduced, so it was still very comfortable. A loud chirp rang out in the sky. Everyone looked up at the same time and saw a giant bird appear in the sky without them noticing. Under the sunlight, the body of the giant bird shone with a golden light, which was very obvious in the sky. Chiyu couldn't help but be shocked at the sight of this giant bird. He might not recognize the other ancient beasts, but he was very familiar with this giant bird. It was the golden-winged great pun that he had once destroyed with his ultimate Qilin arm. Compared to the golden-winged eagle that he had destroyed, the golden-winged eagle in the sky of the Genesis network was slightly smaller. As it was too far from the ground, Chiyu could not fully feel the energy aura it emitted. He could only roughly estimate the strength of its energy. While Chiyu was shocked, Wen Ting could not help but change her expression. The golden-winged eagle had also left a very deep impression on her. Her expression changed drastically, and she whispered to Chiyu, "What should we do?" "It's the golden-winged eagle." Chiyu looked up at the golden-winged eagle in the sky and gestured to Shi Rue and the others beside him. Shirue hurriedly led his people to crouch on the ground, trying to hide as much as possible. Even Ba Ji's black tiger subconsciously crouched on the ground, obviously full of fear towards the golden-winged eagle in the sky. The golden-winged eagle did not attack Chiyu and the others. When it flew above Chiyu and the others, it only circled a little before flying back in the direction it came from. Shirue only heaved a sigh of relief when the giant golden figure completely disappeared. That giant beast just now seemed to be very powerful. Fortunately, it did not attack us, otherwise we would be in big trouble. This kind of giant bird beast is probably the perfect counter to Brother Chi-Yu's snake-shaped giant beast. Chi-Yu nodded. He had once suffered at the hands of the golden-winged eagle, and at the same time he also had the ability of the golden-winged eagle, so he naturally understood how terrifying this giant bird was. The golden-winged eagle was the descendant of the golden-winged eagle. He was afraid that there would be a place for them among the strongest species of the beasts. Patriarch Shirue, let's hurry on with our journey. I keep feeling that something is wrong. The golden-winged eagle is a type of beast. With its eyesight, there is no way it did not notice us. Under these circumstances, it actually left quietly and did not attack us. I'm afraid it has some other goal. We should hurry up and get to the headquarters of the earthly race as soon as possible. A single great golden-winged eagle was no longer able to instill fear in Chiyu, but the great golden-winged eagle in the sky was probably not much weaker than the 10,000-year great golden-winged eagle he had encountered before. What worried Chiyu even more was that the golden-winged eagle had left quietly. If it had other clansmen, it would be very difficult to deal with them. After all, this was the era of the ancient beasts. Who could guarantee that there would not be many golden-winged eagles? Shirue nodded and said, "We are already moving quite fast. I'm afraid it will not be easy to increase our speed." Chiyu said, "I have an idea. Leader Shirue, why don't you let us see your giant beast companion? If we all use our giant beast companion to move forward, our speed will naturally be greatly increased." Of course, he could fly with Snow Girl, but Wen-Ting did not have the ability to fly. Moreover, they needed Shirue to lead the way, so they could only choose to travel on the ground. Shirue nodded and said, "All right then." He carefully took out a white object from his pocket. Upon closer inspection, it seemed to be made of the bones of some kind of animal. It was about 4 meters long and hollow. He brought the white object to his mouth and gently blew on it. A faint whistle came from the creation's network. The whistle was not strong, but Chi-Yu could clearly feel that a sound wave was quickly spreading in all directions. No wonder he had not seen Shirue's giant beast companion. It turned out that he had such a long-distance summoning method. After a while, an orange-red figure sprinted from afar. The figure was extremely fast. In just a short while, it had already arrived in front of everyone. It was a giant beast that Chiyu did not recognize. It did not look very big, only about 3 meters long and 1.5 meters tall. Its thick hind legs were on the ground, and its front legs were folded in front of its chest. It did not look like it had any front claws. It seemed to be folded. The giant beast's head was very unique. It was oval and horizontal. 2 huge eyes protruded from its head, making it look very strange. A pair of wings were completely folded on its back. It seemed that it still had the ability to fly, but when it rushed over earlier, it relied on its ability to jump. A flying giant beast. It seemed that this guy was not weak. Judging from its energy, it seemed to be a 3,000-year-old giant beast. Wen-Ting whispered to Chiyu that this was another beast that did not belong to the mythical beast or the ferocious beast category. "Chiyu, do you know what it looks like?" Wen-Ting asked in a low voice. Chi-Yu's heart skipped a beat. "Mantis." Wen-Ting nodded and said, "It's orange and it has such a big body. This should be an ancient giant beast, the Emperor Mantis. It is considered very powerful among the neutral beasts. Its attacks do not have any energy. It only relies on its front legs. Although its body is relatively small among the giant beasts, its speed is very shocking. No wonder Shirwei could become the leader of the Alpine tribe. He has such a powerful giant beast as his partner. While Qiyu and Wenting were talking, Shirwei had already quickly made arrangements. Ba Ji's black tiger carried 3 of the Alpine tribe's warriors. Shirwei's own mantis was relatively small, so there was not much space for people to sit on, so it only carried himself and 2 warriors. The rest of the Alpine tribe's warriors were all on Qiyu's deep-sea nether snake. Qiyu spread out his spiritual power, relying on the energy of the origin of nature. He used his spiritual power to feel the energy aura of thousands of square kilometers around him. To his surprise, there were no signs of danger. Everything was normal. Although there are some giant beasts, they were all very weak, low-level giant beasts. There were not even any that had a cultivation base of more than 1,000 years. The golden-winged eagle from before had completely disappeared. Could it be that he was too nervous? Qiyu could not help but feel doubtful. However, the warning signs in his heart did not disappear. At that moment, he still insisted on his own opinion. The group did not rest and continued on their journey with the help of the ancient giant beasts. The deep-sea nether snake was depressed as they hurried along. In terms of strength, the black tiger was definitely not its match. Even the emperor mantis could not compete with its ability. However, it was far behind when it came to traveling. In the water, the deep-sea nether snake was undoubtedly the most powerful beast. It used its body to its advantage, and its speed in the water was absolutely unparalleled. However, on land, it could only rely on its huge body to move about. Compared to the black tiger, which was good at running, and the emperor mantis, which relied on speed, it was a far cry. Fortunately, Qiyu saw the deep-sea nether snake's predicament. With the support of his own wind thundercloud force, the deep-sea nether snake's huge body was barely able to keep up with the other 2 giant beasts. Using this method of traveling, the group's speed immediately increased greatly. In just 1 day, they had already traveled the equivalent of 5 days' journey. According to Shirue's estimation, if they rushed at full speed for another day, they would be able to reach the headquarters of the Earth Tribe. During the day of traveling on the Genesis Network, Qiyu used his spiritual power to explore the surrounding situation several times, but he did not find anything unusual. His originally nervous state of mind subconsciously relaxed. However, he, Shirue, and the others did not know that a huge crisis was gradually unfolding around them. How big was an area of 1,000 square kilometers? In fact, it was not very big. If it was a square, it would only be 1,000 meters long on each side. Therefore, the range of Qiyu's spiritual power was still relatively effective. In the valley 100 miles away from where they were resting, a huge aura was continuously condensing. A handsome young man stood at the bottom of the valley with his head lowered respectfully. There were 3 people in front of him. The person in the middle looked like he was in his 40s. He had long dark blue hair, and his body was covered with a layer of black scales. There was a huge red cross on his chest. It was not a mark, but it was also a scale, but it was different from the scales on other parts of his body. He was only of medium build, and he was not handsome. However, the invisible aura he exuded made all the people and beasts around him seem inferior. Chaos King, according to the Golden Wings investigation during the day, the person you met should be among them. The middle-aged man said slowly. His voice was very strange. Although there were no energy fluctuations in his voice, there were 5 different tones in that short sentence. The handsome young man in front of him said respectfully, "Yes, according to the Golden Wing, that's right. Great King, we must destroy him. We can't let him meet up with the other divine beasts. It's hard to imagine how much damage the 4 lucky clouds will bring to us in the future when they touch Kirin." Qiyu and the deep-sea nether snake did not expect that the Chaos King, who was scared away by them, would immediately return to the Beast King's place and report about Qiyu's situation. The appearance of the 4 lucky clouds touching Kirin immediately attracted the close attention of the Beast King. He immediately led his capable subordinates out to look for him. At that time, Chiyu had already entered Tu Jie's tribe and was living in a cave. As the source of nature, the aura of nature would naturally cover up his own energy aura. Therefore, he was not discovered by the Beast King and his subordinates. Just a few days ago, after leaving the mountain range, the figures of Chiyu and the others were immediately confirmed by the beasts. After a short period of tracking, the Beast King specially sent the golden-winged eagle to observe Chiyu's situation. At that time, Chiyu Winting and the others did not see that the Chaos King was sitting on the back of the golden-winged eagle. In the surroundings of this valley, there were dozens of huge figures lying quietly on the ground. At this moment, a figure that was closer to the group walked out. It was the golden-winged eagle that had been patrolling during the day. He clearly did not have the ability to transform into a human form. He said to the king of beasts in the center, "Great king, when we were investigating today, we discovered that the Qilin had a messenger. He's a traitor to us beasts." Chapter 127. The Golden Rock Eagle glanced at the person on the left of the Beast King and said, "He's the Dragon King's subordinate." On the left of the Beast King was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 30s. His skin was very white and his eyes were deep purple. He was handsome and had very broad shoulders. He was furious when he heard the Golden Rock Eagle's words. "Bulsh *T. How could my tribesmen betray me? Great king, don't listen to his lies." The Golden Rock Eagle snorted and said, "How could I lie in front of the great king? In my opinion, Your Highness Dragon King is feeling guilty. The King of Chaos and I both saw it very clearly. That is indeed your clansman, and he already has 9 heads. The King of Chaos can testify to this." The Beast King's dark red eyes that were hidden in the black fog flickered. He looked at the Chaos King and said, "Is that so?" The Chaos King looked at the person who was called the Dragon King. He hesitated for a moment, but still nodded his head. The Beast King snorted and said, "Deep Sea Hades Dragon King, please explain. I hope you can convince me." The Deep Sea Hades Dragon King was anxious. He quickly stepped forward and bowed to the Beast King. "Great King, this is absolutely impossible. There are 9 deep-sea nether snakes in my tribe. They are all under my control. My younger brother is supervising their cultivation. My loyalty to you has never changed." The Beast King did not speak, but the person on the other side of the Genesis network said disdainfully, "You snakes are cunning. Who knows if you deliberately left a way out for yourself? However, you are really good at choosing. You actually chose an ink Kirin with 4 auspicious clouds. I didn't expect this. I really didn't expect this." This person was taller than the Beast King. He had a hooked nose and a wide mouth. His eyes were filled with malice. His body was covered in golden light. As the light was too intense, it was hard to tell if it was scales or feathers. However, one could be sure that his energy intensity was extremely strong. Although he looked like he was in his 30s, one could tell from his eyes that he was very old. The Deep Sea Hades Dragon King said angrily, "Rock, don't slander me. My loyalty to the king is clear. If I want to betray the king, I am willing to accept the most horrible punishment." "Enough," the Beast King said. The Deep Sea Hades Dragon King and the Rock King took a step back. The King of Beasts said indifferently, "Deep Sea Nether Dragon King, I believe in your loyalty. However, there's something fishy about this matter. They wouldn't dare to deceive me. Perhaps you have some clansmen who are stranded outside." The Deep Sea Hades Dragon King hesitated for a moment and said, "I'm not sure about this. After all, the Deep Sea Nether Snake tribe is very large. It might be possible that we have descendants outside. However, even if my descendants became Kirin's messenger, I'm afraid they were forced. The Deep Sea Nether Snake tribe and the divine beasts have always been mortal enemies. Great King, you must believe in your most loyal subordinate." The The Beast King nodded and said, "How about this? Immediately send out a divine sense to your tribe and see if any of your tribe members have left the sea. Then report back to me." The Deep Sea Hades Dragon King nodded respectfully and glared at the Rock King. Then he quickly left the bottom of the valley and disappeared in a few flashes. The Rock King said in a low voice, "Great King, do you really believe in this guy?" The Beast King said indifferently, "Rock King, I know that you have always been prejudiced against the Deep Sea Nether Snake Dragon King. It's no wonder. After all, you're natural enemies. However, do you think he would betray me? Now, our beast tribe has the absolute upper hand in the battle against the divine beasts. Even if he wants to betray me, it's impossible for him to do so at this time. You don't need to say anything more. I know what I'm doing." The Rock King said respectfully, "Yes, great king." "Then, how do you think we should solve the matter of the Ink Kirin? Since we found an opportunity where he was alone, shouldn't we take action?" The Beast King nodded and said, "I didn't expect that the Kirin clan would have an Ink Kirin with for auspicious clouds in the process of their gradual decline. They haven't had an Ink Kirin for a long time. I think that this Ink Kirin is likely to be the new king of the divine beasts. Under such circumstances, we have no other choice. Even if we have to suffer great loss, we must destroy it. We can't let the divine beasts have a chance to rise again. However, what I don't understand now is that since he is the new king of the divine beasts, why did he appear alone? Moreover, he was discovered by the Chaos King. Isn't he afraid that we will attack him together? Or this is a trap for a conspiracy?" The Chaos King thought for a moment and said, "Great King, I think this is a possibility. Otherwise, with Ink Kirin's strength, it won't be difficult for him to destroy me. Moreover, he is Ink Kirin with four auspicious clouds that can take human form. His cultivation base is at least close to 2,000 years. Kirin's 2,000 years of cultivation base is definitely higher than our dire beast's 20,000 years of cultivation base. Moreover, being able to take human form means that he is no longer limited by Kirin's lifespan. How could such a powerful Kirin let me go so easily? Therefore, I think it's better to be more cautious in this operation. Even if we don't consider the possibility of traps, just the Ink Kirin's ultimate Kirin arm alone will be very troublesome." The Great Rock Wisdom Monarch said disdainfully, "Chaos Monarch, I think you've been scared out of your wits by the Qilin. We've gathered over 30 holy beasts that are over 10,000 years old, and we even have a great king here. Why would we be afraid of a Qilin? So what if there's a trap? With our current strength, we don't have to be afraid even if we encounter the main force of the divine beasts. Those divine beasts are all useless. Do you think they can fight against us? If it weren't for the few remaining Kirin, I'm afraid we would have destroyed all the divine beasts." The Chaos King glanced at the Great Rock King. His status among the divine beasts was not as high as that of the Great Rock King. Moreover, he had always been cunning and naturally did not want to offend anyone. He smiled apologetically and said, "I'm just voicing my opinion. The final decision will naturally be decided by our great king. Of course, I believe that with your strength, those divine beasts will definitely not be able to resist you." The Beast King raised his hand to stop the Chaos King and the Great Rock King from arguing further. He said calmly, "I have a plan in mind. Even if we're going to make a move, we need to pick the best time to minimize our losses. Which one of you is willing to be the main force against that Kirin?" As soon as he said that, the Chaos King and the Great Rock King looked at each other but did not say a word. They were very clear about what the main force against Kirin was. The so-called assistant would be the one to receive all of Kirin's attacks, while the other divine beasts would coordinate with him. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for other divine beasts to trap Kirin. Only humanoid divine beasts like them could hold Kirin back. However, in this case, it was equivalent to completely exposing itself to Kirin. Once Kirin used the ultimate Kirin arm, it would be impossible for him to dodge. In the past, when the divine beasts had to use the ultimate Kirin arm to deal with Kirin, this powerful divine beast would try his best to resist the attack power of the ultimate Kirin arm and minimize the losses of the divine beasts. Originally, there were still 4 powerful beasts that could transform into human forms under the throne of the ferocious Beast King. However, during the 2 crucial battles with the divine beasts, they all became the main force against the Chilants. They used 4 lives in exchange for the lives of 2 Chilants. It was also from then on that the divine beasts started to tilt. Now, there were fewer and fewer divine beasts on the Yen Huang continent. They were completely at a disadvantage against the divine beasts. However, who would really be willing to be the main force against Kirin, transforming into human forms? Even a superior divine beast would need at least 20,000 years of cultivation. The longer they lived, the more they cherished their lives. Therefore, when the Beast King raised this question, the Chaos King and the Rock Wisdom King had a tacit understanding to keep quiet. Neither of them took the initiative to answer. The Beast King said coldly, "Why? Are you all unwilling?" The Rock Wisdom King said in a low voice, "Great King, what do you think? Since there is a traitor with the deep-sea nether snake Dragon King, and he has become Kirin's messenger, why don't we just let him be the main force against Kirin?" Bullsh *T. The Beast King said angrily, "The deep-sea nether Dragon King's true strength can only be unleashed in the sea. Instead of letting him be the main force against Kirin, why don't you send your golden rock eagle to attack?" The Rock Wisdom King insisted. However, after becoming a deep-sea nether dragon, he is no longer restricted by the sea. Even if he can't unleash his full strength, the deep-sea nether dragon king should still be able to resist. The King of Beasts snorted coldly. Just as he was about to say something, a gigantic figure leapt towards him from afar. The huge figure stopped 30 meters away from the Beast King, knelt on one knee, and said respectfully, "Greetings, great king." It turned out to be a giant ape. Unlike ordinary apes, it not only had a 7-meter-tall body, but it also had 3 eyes. Among the dire beasts, it belonged to the 3-eyed demonic ape lineage. Its main strength was not reflected in its attacks, but in some special aspects. The Beast King casually waved the Rock Wisdom King back and said, "We'll talk about who will be the main force later. King Kong, how's the progress on your side?" The 3-eyed demon ape King Kong said respectfully, "According to the king's instructions, I sneaked into the Alpine native tribe and found the human who communicated with Kirin. In order not to alert the enemy, I didn't kill him. However, I used the demon eye to obtain some useful information from him." The Beast King nodded and said, "Go on." King Kong said, "It's like this. The Alpine native tribe member said that Kirin claimed to be a Han from afar. He was passing by here to look for the relics left behind by the gods." "What?" The ferocious Beast King, who had always been very calm, was shocked when he heard the words "heavenly gods' ruins." The aura on his body surged. The Chaos King and the Rock Wisdom King, who were the closest to him, subconsciously took a few steps back before they could barely endure the huge pressure. The relics of the gods, the relics of the gods. No wonder he would wander around the land of Yen Huang alone. So that's why. The ferocious Beast King muttered to himself thoughtfully, "The divine beasts are now completely suppressed by us. If they want to make a comeback, they must have some special methods. The Creator's network and finding the relics of the kami is obviously one of the most direct methods. If they really get their hands on a divine artifact, perhaps the current situation will really change." The Chaos King asked curiously, "Great King, are the relics left behind by the gods really that scary?" The King of Beasts slowly nodded and said, "According to what I know, according to the legends, when the gods left our world, they left behind 10 divine weapons. These 10 divine weapons all possess unfathomable and powerful abilities. Among them, the Bell of the Eastern Emperor, which is ranked first, is able to directly communicate with the gods. It also has the ability to destroy almost everything. I've tried to find these relics before, but I've never found anything." The The Rock Wisdom King said, "Respected King, is there a need for us to be afraid of these illusory things?" The Beast King snorted coldly. "Illusory? I've seen the power of one of them with my own eyes. Do you still think it's illusory? Let's not talk about other things. As long as the relics that I've seen are able to fully unleash their power, apart from me, all of you guys here would be turned into ashes in an instant. Even I would find it difficult to resist a fully activated relic." The Rock Wisdom King and the Chaos King's expressions changed at the same time. In fact, they didn't know how powerful the Beast King really was. However, in their impression, the Beast King was an incomparably powerful existence. If even he had said so, it could be seen how terrifying the 10 relics were. The Beast King's tone softened a little. "However, you don't have to be too afraid. Although these 10 relics are terrifying, it's really very difficult to unleash their power. Back then, when Emperor Huang accidentally obtained the Xianyuan sword and killed Qiyu, he could only unleash 1/10 of the sword's power. If we hadn't been entangled to death by the divine beasts, Qiyu wouldn't have died at all. It's a pity that his innate demonic body is the best choice to inherit my ability. After that, the Xianyuan sword naturally entered the seal. Even with my power, it's difficult to enter the Xianyuan tomb where the Xianyuan sword is located. Among the 10 great relics, only I know the specific location of the Xianyuan tomb. The rest are very mysterious. However, I can imagine that the divine god must have left very powerful restrictions in the places where the 10 relics are for the balance of our world. Without special opportunities, it's impossible to obtain them. Even if you do obtain them, it's not easy to unleash the full power of the relics. So, you don't have to worry too much." The Chaos King said, "However, Great King, since that Kirin can become the unprecedented ink Kirin of the 4 auspicious clouds, it proves that he already has a very strong opportunity. Kirin has always been an auspicious sign. Their luck is very good. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been the king of the divine beasts. I think we should be more cautious. Even if we suffer great losses, we must completely destroy that ink Kirin and not give the divine beasts any chance." The Beast King said, "If I didn't plan to do so, why would I come in person? All right, all of you can leave. I need to think about it carefully. The divine beasts should also understand the difficulty of obtaining the relics. Since they still sent the new king of the divine beasts out to search for it, there must be some reasons that we don't know. When we are at a disadvantage, we always have to take risks in order to turn the situation around. Since we are at an advantage, we must fight steadily and not give them any chance to take advantage of us. No matter what the specific situation is, when I give my final decision tomorrow, it will be the moment we make our move." Early in the morning, when the sky had just brightened, Qiyu woke up from a nightmare. In his dream, he seemed to see a red sea. In that sea of blood, there were all kinds of white bones. The endless sea of blood seemed to want to swallow him. "Wake up!" Qiyu shouted in a deep voice. Under the effect of his mental strength, his voice was transmitted into everyone's ears. The people of the Alpine tribe, as well as Wenting and Snow Girl, were all awakened. Ba Goose said with some dissatisfaction, "Brother Qiyu, we slept very late last night. The sky is not even bright yet. Why did you wake us up so early?" Qiyu said in a deep voice, "I still have an ominous premonition in my heart. No matter what, we must hurry up and strive to reach the headquarters of the Earth Tribe as soon as possible. Only then can I be at ease." As he spoke, he looked up into the sky. Vaguely, with his sensitive mental strength, he felt as if there was a pair of cold eyes staring at him. Ba Gu wanted to say something, but Shui said, "Listen to Brother Qiyu, I trust his judgment. Come, let's go now." Fortunately, with the help of their giant beast companion, whether it was Shirwei, Bagut, or the warriors of the Alpine tribe, they did not feel too tired. They continued their journey according to yesterday's arrangement. The sky gradually brightened as the bright sun of the creation network rose from the east, bringing warmth to the land again. Looking at the sun, The inexplicable sense of pressure in Chi-Yu's heart weakened a little. He let out a long breath. He also hoped that his premonition was wrong. After all, if something that could make him feel so pressured, if it was really dangerous, then it must be something extraordinary. A fragrant breeze came, and when Ting floated from the snake head she was on to the snake head Chi-Yu was on. She sat in front of him and snuggled into Chi-Yu's arms. "Chi-Yu, what's wrong with you? This is the first time I've felt so disturbed in your heart. What did you feel? Even when we came to this new era, you did not become like this." Chi-Yu smiled bitterly. "I also want to know what exactly I'm feeling, but it's just an illusory feeling. There's an indescribable pressure that makes my heart feel heavy. I hope that my judgment is wrong." When Ting's expression changed slightly. Because Kirin is an auspicious sign, so his senses are the most sensitive among all the giant beasts, especially in terms of foresight. "Before my parents' accident, my father had a bad feeling. Could it be?" Chi-Yu held Wen Ting in his arms and said softly, "Don't think too much. Even if there's danger, there's still me. Do you know what I hope for the most now?" Wen Ting shook her head. Chi-Yu replied, "I do not wish for my judgment to be wrong. Right now, I only hope that the great shaman's giant beast companion is extremely powerful. That way, I might be able to feel more at ease." Time passed by. Because of the pressure in his heart, Chi-Yu asked Ba-Go and Shirwei to speed up. He also unreservedly channeled his thundercloud force into the deep-sea nether snake's body to help him increase his speed. On the same day, Shirwei told him that they were not far from the earthly tribe's headquarters. In the course of half a day's journey, nothing had happened, not even a normal giant beast. This calmness made Chi-Yu even more uneasy. There was always a period of calm before a storm. The only thing he could do now was to urge everyone to continue on their journey. After passing through a muddy swamp, Chi-Yu and more than 10 people re-entered the open plains. Shirwei said, "From here we will reach the headquarters in a short period of time. Brother Chi-Yu, we have been on the road for such a long time. Shouldn't we take a rest? Even if we are fine, our giant beast partners should be tired." The black tiger and the emperor mantis both focused their attention on Chi-Yu. Chi-Yu could see the dissatisfaction in their eyes. He sighed in his heart. He also understood that if he allowed these ancient giant beasts to continue on their journey, they would probably go on strike. In desperation, just as Chi-Yu was about to agree to Shirwei's request, he suddenly realized that the eyes of the emperor mantis and the black tiger had changed. The original dissatisfaction had turned into intense fear. Turning around abruptly, Chi-Yu's pupils suddenly shrank. What did he see? First, Chi-Yu saw a figure. With his eyesight, he could clearly tell that this figure was the Chaos King who was scared away by him. Behind the Chaos King, more than 10 huge figures followed him and quickly approached them. What terrified Chi-Yu was that although these figures were extremely huge, they did not make any sound. Immediately after, Chi-Yu saw a shadow in the sky. It was 7 flying, ferocious beasts. In front of them, there was a person quietly floating at the very front, standing on the back of the great golden-winged eagle. In an instant, they had already arrived above their heads. It was also at this moment that Chi-Yu sensed even more powerful presences. Turning around, he could clearly see over 10 ferocious beasts striding in their direction with their heads held high. This time, the ferocious beasts in front of them did not conceal their voices. Every step they took caused the ground to tremble violently. In front of them floated a tall and well-proportioned figure. It was shrouded in black mist, making it impossible to see the figure's true form. The deep-sea nether snake was dumbfounded. This is a bit too exaggerated. Chi-Yu, tell me they're not looking for us, right? Chi-Yu smiled bitterly and said, "You are just deceiving yourself. Do you believe it yourself?" The deep-sea nether snake's 9 huge heads were all gathered together. It muttered to itself, "Oh my God! The Chaos King, the golden-winged eagle, and... that's the 3-eyed magic ape and the X-Bull. They are all ferocious beasts. Am I seeing things? That person seems to be from the deep-sea nether snake race. He can transform into a human form. So he must be a deep-sea abyssal dragon. Oh, a deep-sea abyssal dragon that doesn't transform into a human form should be the strongest among the abyssal dragons. Chiyu, what have you done? Don't tell me you jumped into a well with these guys' children? Why are they all here? After a brief moment of panic, Chiyu calmed down. He looked at the pale Shirwei and said, Chief Shirwei, I'm afraid I brought this trouble. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I can't protect you. If we fight later, find a way to escape. I will try my best to create opportunities for you. These ferocious beasts' target should be me. As he spoke, his eyes fell on Wenting and Snow Girl. Wenting acted as if nothing had happened. She smiled and said, Why are you looking at me? I will be wherever you are. Her figure was very light, but there was an unquestionable determination in it. Snow Girl's words were even more resolute, so resolute that Chiyu had no reason to refuse. Father, I will not be separated from you again. What did you call me? Chiyu was dumbfounded. A faint smile appeared on Snow Girl's pretty face. Actually, as early as when we came to this world, with the help of the origin of nature, my two personalities have already merged into one. So, I naturally know what happened. I just don't want to admit it. Father, I will not be separated from you. Besides, do you think they will let us go? From Snow Girl's somewhat mischievous tone, everyone present could hear her determination to die. Looking at Wenting, and then looking at Snow Girl, Chiyu smiled heroically. Well, my precious wife, my precious daughter, then let us face the enemy together. Even if we die, what's the harm in making the ferocious beasts put on such a big formation? Deep Sea Nether Snake suddenly said, I understand, one of these four guys must be the ferocious Beast King. Last time we scared away the Chaos King, he really thought you were the human ink Kirin. That's why he made such a big formation. This time, they are determined to kill us all. Poor me, I haven't married the White Lady yet. I knew it. I knew it wouldn't end well to follow you, boy. I'm so pitiful. Big brother Nether Snake, actually you don't have to worry. After I die, you can regain your freedom. As long as you tell these ferocious beasts that I forced you to be their messenger, I think they should not make things difficult for you. Chiyu said calmly. He knew very well that he had no chance at all. Even if it was just the Chaos King, he had more than 20,000 years of cultivation. He was not someone they could deal with, not to mention there were so many ferocious beasts. With just a simple glance, he could tell that these guys were not easy to deal with. For humanoid ferocious beasts, leading dozens of powerful ferocious beasts. Such a formation could probably deal with any powerful person or giant beast in this world. Even if a deity descended, he might not be able to deal with them, let alone the few of them. After listening to Chiyu's words, the deep-sea nether snake was stunned for a moment. Its huge snake eyes hesitated for a moment, and then it said, Forget it, I accept my fate. Since I met you, I'm afraid today's ending has been destined. If I betray my master today, I'm afraid the White Lady will never forgive me. Since we can't live to be husband and wife, maybe we can still be together in hell. Damn it, I'm going all out. Chiyu looked up at the pure blue sky, and there was a trace of confusion in his eyes. Was this the death that was destined to happen to him? Ruyue, Mingming, and Shangbing, I'm sorry. I'm afraid I won't be able to see you again. And my Zodiac companions. Master Zagru, everything is over. As Kirin, I will definitely die standing and use my last life to protect Kirin's dignity. The sudden crisis was something that Chiyu could not prepare for. Although he had a bad feeling about this, he did not expect that his premonition would come from such a powerful, ferocious beast camp. Looking at the approaching ferocious beasts, Chiyu's heart turned cold. The huge pressure was like a cage that was constantly shrinking, and he could not breathe. The originally clear sky gradually became gloomy after the appearance of the ferocious beasts. There were no dark clouds, but the light of the sun had become dim. Taking a deep breath, Chi Yu calmed his surging emotions. He activated the thundercloud force in his body, and his body floated up and stopped about 5 meters away from the ground. All the ferocious beasts stopped when they were 200 meters away from them. Energy rays of various colors slowly lit up. An energy barrier formed by the ferocious beasts completely enveloped them. At this moment, it would be difficult for even a speck of dust to escape. King of the ferocious beasts, come out. Chi Yu's calm voice spread far and wide. With the thundercloud force in his body activated, a huge shadow of ink Kirin appeared behind him. The aura of the surrounding ferocious beasts stagnated. The longer they cultivated, the more these ferocious beasts cherished their lives. Although they were here to destroy Chi Yu, they could not help but feel a little frightened when they saw this unprecedented Kirin phenomenon. After all, the deterrent effect of Kirin's ultimate Kirin arm during the era of the ancient beasts was incomparable to any other ability. Chapter 128. Back then, when July only had the third thundercloud force, she had faced the siege of the 4 major families' patriarchs. At that time, it had also brought him great pressure. However, compared to that time, the pressure he was under now was many times greater. If it wasn't for the origin of nature helping Chi Yu to completely transform his body, he probably wouldn't have been able to withstand this pressure. Seeing the 4 ferocious beast kings approaching, Chi Yu's gaze became extremely cold. He knew that the combined lifespan of these 4 guys was probably at least 100,000 years. None of them could be fought against by the current subset. However, Chi Yu wasn't afraid. At this time, fear had no meaning. He wasn't even sure if he could use the ultimate Kirin's arm to kill one of them. However, at the same time, he also knew that although these 4 ferocious beast kings were extremely powerful, they were still afraid of him. Otherwise, they wouldn't have mobilized so many ferocious beasts to deal with him. The ferocious beast king looked at Chi Yu and the shadow behind him through the black mist in front of him. He also felt very strange now. The energy aura emitted by Chi Yu was far less powerful than he had imagined. However, it was precisely because of this that he didn't dare to take it lightly. After all, Kirin was the king of divine beasts. He had a strong ability to conceal his aura. The ferocious beast king slowly drifted forward. His body wasn't very prominent among the 4 ferocious beast kings, and his aura wasn't strong. However, when Chi Yu looked at him closely, he immediately had a special feeling. It was as if he had known Fan Fo for a long time. The Kirin blood in his body couldn't help but boil at this time. The 4 thundercloud force didn't need to be controlled and naturally rose to its peak state. The Kirin pearl on his chest shone brightly, and the 4-colored light formed a colored, invisible barrier around Chi Yu's body. Are you the new king of divine beasts? The ferocious beast king looked at Chi Yu and asked. Chi Yu smiled indifferently and said, "Do you think I am?" The ferocious beast king nodded and said, "You are calm in the face of danger. You already possess the aura of a ruler, as expected of the unprecedented Ink Qilin, who possesses the power of the 4 auspicious clouds." Chi Yu, thank you for the compliment. You guys have set up so many formations today. Is it for me? It's really my honor. The great rock wisdom king snorted coldly and said, "You're dead today no matter what your position among the divine beasts is." Chi Yu put on a curious expression. Did I say that I would leave alive? I'm talking to the ferocious king. I'm talking to the ferocious beast king. Ferocious Chi king, and said I king ferocious force. King and king. When Ting and the Snow Lady couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. They could naturally tell how powerful these ferocious beasts were, but Chi Yu was still provoking them at this time. Wasn't he digging his own grave? At the same time, they could not help but admire Chi Yu's courage. At this moment, Chi Yu's aura had been as stable as Mount Tai for a long time, which was already very impressive. Hearing Chi Yu's words, a cold light flashed in the Rock King's eyes. His body emitted a golden light that was even more dazzling than the sun. It directly enveloped Qi Yu's body. The King of Beasts did not stop the great rock Wisdom King. He also wanted to test the extent of Qi Yu's strength. Qi Yu didn't move. Just as the golden light was about to hit him, black and silver light surged out from his left forearm. In the blink of an eye, it had already condensed into a large and glossy Qilin mirror. It blocked all of the golden light from the hand and directly shot towards the surroundings. It immediately caused a violent uproar among the vicious beasts guarding 200 meters away. In terms of energy, Qi Yu was far inferior to the great rock Wisdom King. However, the Kirin mirror had a certain reflective effect against non-physical attacks, especially against light. Therefore, Qi Yu didn't use any energy at all. He only used some clever methods to reflect the great rock Wisdom King's attack with the help of the Kirin mirror. Some of the vicious beasts that were slower to react immediately suffered some minor injuries. The great rock Wisdom King's pupils shrank. You really are the new king of beasts. Even the Kirin clan's treasure, the Kirin mirror, is in your hands. Coupled with the Kirin pearl, you have no choice but to admit it. Qi Yu ignored the great rock Wisdom King. He still looked at the King of Beasts and said coldly, "King of Beasts, is this how you teach your subordinates?" It seems that this so-called King of Beasts is only SO. The King of Beasts said indifferently, "They are indeed my troops. Brother Great Rock, please don't be impatient. Don't let others see us as a joke." The Great Rock Wisdom King was obviously very afraid of the King of Beasts. He responded and didn't speak again. However, his eyes flashed with a fierce gaze. His aura was locked on Qi Yu for a long time. However, Qi Yu's 4 types of thundercloud force naturally formed a protective shield that directly isolated him from being locked on. The King of Beasts looked at Qi Yu and said, "The Kirin clan has an outstanding talent like you. It really makes me feel very depressed. I am also very appreciative of talents today. You seem to be young, but you have already cultivated to such a level. You should understand the situation of the divine beasts. In this world, the divine beasts can no longer be the true enemy of us vicious beasts. If you are willing to lead the divine beasts to surrender to me, I can guarantee you the title of King of Divine Beasts. I can even let you become the supreme leader of all the divine beasts except for me." Qi Yu laughed. "Can you think of something fresh? Why do villains always say a few meaningless words of persuasion when they see the righteous? Do you think I will surrender to you? Do you think I can command all the divine beasts? How are you going to trust me? Even if I agree to surrender to you now, will I not change my mind? Don't tell me you can put any restrictions on me. Since I am the unprecedented Ink Kirin of the 4 auspicious clouds, I am afraid there are many unknown changes that you can't imagine. Since I have been surrounded by you, I have never thought of leaving this place alive. I don't know how much the King of Beasts is prepared to pay in exchange for my life. Which one of you is willing to be the sacrifice to destroy Kirin? Is it Yun Yan or you?" Qi Yu pointed his right hand at the great rock Wisdom King, the Deep Sea Abyssal Dragon King, and the Chaos King. The expressions of these kings of beasts changed at the same time. Perhaps in the eyes of others, Qi Yu's performance was too arrogant. However, for these kings of beasts who were very familiar with Kirin, they were very familiar with Kirin's abilities. In their hearts, as a 4 auspicious clouds in Kirin, he definitely had a reason to be so arrogant. The King of Beasts' aura became colder. "In that case, you still want to seek death." Qi Yu chuckled and said, "Before we make our move, I want to ask you a question. Your Excellency, King of Beasts." The King of Beasts said in a deep voice, "Ask away." Qi Yu looked around and said, "If you are the one who dies, then among the 3 of them, who is most likely to take over your position as King of Beasts? Or rather, if I fight to the death today, if I kill you, will the 3 of them be very happy?" After hearing Qi Yu's words, the King of Beasts suddenly snorted angrily. After all, This was the era of ancient beasts. Although they were powerful enough, when it came to commanding, they could never be compared to the modern people who were countless years later. From the beginning until now, although Chi-Yu had only said a few words without much practice, he had already started to provoke conflict between the powerhouses of these beasts. After all, beasts were different from mythological beasts. Aggression and selfishness were their characteristics. After all, which beasts didn't want to become the powerful king of beasts? Currently, in order to maintain his position, the king of beasts had killed countless challengers. If it wasn't for his strength, he wouldn't have been able to sit on the king of beasts' position for so long. After hearing what Chi-Yu said, the king of beasts, who had always been suspicious, immediately turned his gaze to the great rock king and the others. He was very clear that these guys were very ambitious. They just didn't dare to show it in front of him. Feeling the gaze of the king of beasts, the sly Chaos King was the first to react. He hurriedly said, "Great King, you can't doubt my loyalty to you. You also know that because of the uniqueness of the Chaos Clan, no beasts would be willing to submit to me. My loyalty to you will never change." In fact, Chi-Yu's words had already made the other three beasts have some ideas in their minds. The reason why they were following the current king of beasts was because the current king of beasts was powerful enough. However, no matter how powerful the king of beasts was, when faced with the unprecedented inked Kirin of the four auspicious clouds, once the battle reached the end, both sides would at least suffer. In that case, they would naturally have a chance. Therefore, Chi-Yu's words had already made them a little tempted. "What about you guys?" The king of beasts' dark red eyes that were hidden behind the black fog turned to the great rock Wisdom King and the dark sea Hades Dragon King. The two beasts looked at each other and saw something in each other's eyes. They hurriedly said respectfully, "Great King, we are also loyal to you." This is obviously Kirin trying to sow discord between us. Please don't believe it. Chi-Yu smiled as he looked at everything in front of him. He could feel that something around his body was breaking. Under the pressure of these four powerful threats, he finally broke through the bottleneck that had been bothering him for the past few days. A faint light floated out from Chi-Yu's body, and the originally dim sky palace suddenly lit up. A dark cloud appeared above Chi-Yu's head. The dark cloud was in the shape of a ring. A bright ray of sunlight shone down from the Rocky Valley harbor, completely enveloping Chi-Yu's body. Under the illumination of the sunlight, the shadow of Kirin behind Chi-Yu suddenly shone brightly. Even his own aura had increased tremendously. As the black and silver light intertwined, a layer of thin black scales rapidly grew on Chi-Yu's exposed skin. At the same time, his muscles expanded, and the black scales shone with a silver luster. The Alpine native tribe's leaf armor on his body had completely shattered. Chi-Yu roared to the sky, and a circle of black and silver light surged out. His long black hair was scattered behind his back. Unknowingly, there was an additional strand of silver hair in the middle. His eyes had turned from silver to black when he used Kirin's thundercloud force. They were as black as ink, like two black gems without any impurities. His entire body was covered in a layer of black scale armor. His right arm was not covered in black scales. The armor on his right arm was also black, but the black armor was inlaid with silver patterns. The silver patterns were very special. They were silver whorls, and there were sharp protrusions on the whorls. It felt like each whorl was like a silver sun. It was Kirin's transformation. Seeing the sudden change in Chi-Yu's body, the four great beast kings, including the Beast King, retreated 100 meters at the same time. After all, Ink Kirin was still very important to them. When they saw the sudden change in Chi-Yu's body, they were more or less wary, especially since the change in Chi-Yu's body was something they had never seen before. The change in his energy aura was the most authentic Kirin's thundercloud force. Behind him, a golden light shone, and a pair of huge golden wings appeared out of thin air. The wings spread to the sides, and a golden halo appeared behind the Kirin phantom. The great Rock King cried out, Kirin soul-snatching, You actually have the ability of my lineage." Chi-Yu smiled calmly and said, "Is it that strange? I once killed a 10,000-year golden rock eagle and took all of its abilities, including the NEI pill. Naturally, I have the ability of the golden rock eagle lineage. Looking at you, you must be its senior." The great rock king's eyes flashed fiercely. "You dared to kill the disciple of the great rock king. I will tear you into pieces." Chi-Yu was shocked. He did not expect that the person in front of him was the ancestor of the golden rock eagle lineage, the great rock king. From the legends he had heard, this great rock king must be very powerful. But even so, he still had to respect the king of beasts. It could be seen how powerful these beasts were. Looking up at the sky, Chi-Yu knew that his survival today was very slim. At this moment, he no longer felt any pressure in his heart. Facing so many super experts, his mentality was completely relaxed. Fight to the death. No matter the result, at least he could not weaken Kirin's reputation. Strange phenomenon, Kirin transformation. Everything is not over yet. With another roar, the shadow of Kirin behind him instantly rushed to where Chi-Yu was, completely enveloping him. Then, the shadow of Kirin seemed to fuse and continuously attacked Chi-Yu's body. The black scale armor on Chi-Yu's body quickly changed. The original single layer of scale armor became 3 layers of scales. His whole body suddenly swelled up. Then, his silver hair quickly spread to the surroundings, turning his black hair completely silver. He reached out with his right hand, and an incomparably surging energy burst out from his arm. Under the effect of the sudden increase of Kirin's thundercloud force, the pair of golden wings on his back became black. They were not wings formed by feathers, but by giant, condensed scales. When they flapped, a metallic sound could be heard. The Kirin pearl on his chest seemed to expand a bit, and the entire Kirin pearl turned completely silver. On the black Kirin armor, it was especially eye-catching. The silver halo expanded outward like a breastplate. The Kirin armor on his shoulder also became 3 layers, 1 layer on top of the other, extending downward from the side to protect his waist and ribs. At the same time, a circle of special-shaped scales erected around Chi-Yu's neck, protecting his neck like a collar. At this moment, overall, Chi-Yu's body was like a fortress, and his defense had been raised to the limit. At this moment, Chi-Yu was achieving the second stage of the Kirin transformation, which was the second stage that could only be used after reaching the 6-cloud level. With the method provided by the deep-sea nether snake, he had been continuously purifying his own energy these days. Not only had his strength recovered to its previous peak state, but he had also improved greatly. The bottleneck that Kirin had experienced previously was one of the most difficult bottlenecks to break through. If it were not for the Blue Sea Thunder Pearl and the Golden Winged Eagle NEI pill, which were great energy supplements, it would have taken him a long time to reach this bottleneck. Even if he had reached the bottleneck, it would have been very difficult for him to break through. Today, in the face of the pressure brought by so many tyrannical beasts, Chi-Yu's bottleneck was forcibly broken through. Therefore, he had the ability to transform into the second stage of the Kirin transformation. Every time Kirin increased by 1 cloud, his strength would double. Coupled with the improvement brought by the Kirin transformation, the current Chi-Yu had reached the peak of his strength ever since he became Kirin. The feeling of his body, full of energy, filled Chi-Yu with confidence. In this world, nothing was absolutely impossible, even when facing such powerful enemies. He was not afraid. The thundercloud force in his body increased rapidly, and a 4-colored auspicious cloud appeared under his feet. At this moment, he could finally be called the real Kirin. Seeing the changes in Chi-Yu's body, the Beast King's expression couldn't be seen because of the black fog. However, the other 3 Beast Kings revealed a solemn expression. After all, Chi-Yu didn't belong to this era's Kirin. The surprise he brought to them was too great, especially when Kirin's thundercloud force was completely restrained. They couldn't figure out Qi Yu's true strength at all. Qi Yu's words had been deeply imprinted in their minds. In this world, no one wanted to die, especially super beasts like them who already had powerful abilities and high status. They cherished their lives even more. Therefore, at this moment, they were a little hesitant. Unexpectedly, none of them rushed to attack first. The final change in Qi Yu's body appeared on Kirin's arm. The original silver lines on Kirin's arm gradually expanded, and a completely silver image of Kirin appeared on his right arm. The image of Kirin's head was right between his thumb and index finger. Its mouth was wide open, as if it was about to spit out the strongest energy. Layers of distorted light constantly surrounded Qi Yu's arm, causing it to tremble slightly. There was no need to feel the intensity of the energy. Just by looking at it, one could tell that it contained an explosive power. Qi Yu was a little surprised to find that although he had completed the second stage of Kirin's transformation, the aura he exuded did not increase. On the contrary, it weakened. The extremely condensed thundercloud force in his body could be used in battle at any time under the control of his spiritual power. Even Qi Yu himself didn't know how powerful the Kirin's thundercloud force was after being condensed by the source of nature. He only faintly felt that his body's ability had reached a whole new level. Facing the Beast King, Qi Yu couldn't help but secretly sigh in his heart. If only he could return to his own era when his strength had reached this level. Seeing that Qi Yu's deterrence to his subordinates was getting stronger and stronger, the Beast King's eyes couldn't help but shine fiercely. Since he was here today, he definitely didn't want to let Qi Yu go. He slowly raised his right hand and said indifferently, "Prove your loyalty to me with your actions. I will always watch your every move. Think about your clansmen." His words were directed at the other 3 Beast Kings. As soon as his voice fell, his body had already glided and continued to retreat. The beasts that were originally surrounding the Beast King also slowly retreated with the Beast King. With Qi Yu as the center, a huge plain was left for them. The real battle was finally about to begin. At this time, Qi Yu also completely raised his thundercloud force to the limit. 2 lights lit up at the same time, one blue and one red, appeared on Qi Yu's side. Wen Ting appeared on Qi Yu's right hand, her whole body emitting a layer of dazzling red light. Qi Yu suddenly felt that the current Wen Ting's energy had reached an unprecedented level. Even he felt that Wen Ting had actually become so powerful for the first time. The magnitude of this energy had actually exceeded the level of a 10,000-year-old beast. Compared to Wen Ting, the Snow Girl was much weaker. However, at this moment, she felt like a needle, an ice needle. All her energy was condensed together. Her cold eyes stared at the Chaos King on the left, as if she wanted to poke a hole in his body. 3 against 3. That's more fair. Wen Ting smiled. The scarlet glow on her body was already covered with a layer of red scales, and the shape of the scales was actually extremely similar to the Kirin armor on Qi Yu's body. Even her right arm had a pattern similar to Qi Yu's. However, the tail of the Kirin pattern was a little different from the Kirin pattern on Qi Yu's right arm. However, this subtle change was not noticed by the 3 fierce kings. The 3 fierce kings looked at each other, and the deep-sea abyssal Dragon King frowned. Another Kirin. Why didn't I know that the Kirin clan actually has so many clansmen? Wen Ting gently combed her long hair, which had turned into the color of rubies, and said calmly, "There are still many things that you don't know. Since our Kirin clan is the king of the divine beasts, how can you beasts know the strength that we possess? I want to take a look. What makes the 3 of you think that you can destroy us here? I think that with the 2 of us combined, even if there were a few more of you, they would have to pay a huge price to destroy us, let alone the 3 of you." The 3 fierce kings looked at the retreating, fierce Beast King at the same time. Obviously, they no longer had their previous imposing manner. They began to hesitate. After all, Two Kirin and one Kirin were two completely different concepts. Everything that Wen-Ting had shown was exactly the appearance of a fire Kirin. Moreover, it was a humanoid fire Kirin, coupled with the unprecedented for auspicious clouds in Kirin. With such a combination, even if the three of them could obtain the final victory, they might not be able to resist the ultimate Kirin arm that was cast by two Kirin. You useless things, don't be fooled. She is not Kirin. Can't you feel that the aura on her body is not pure? This is just a subspecies that has a small portion of Kirin's bloodline. How much ability can she have? The fierce Beast King wasn't on the battlefield. Although he was far away, he could still clearly sense the difference between Wen-Ting and Chi-Yu's aura. The Deep Sea Hades Dragon King and the Rock Wisdom King looked at each other. They knew very well that the fierce Beast King was already suspicious of them because of what Chi-Yu had said. They also knew the fierce Beast King's means. These two fierce kings, after all, they were the leaders of their clans. After a short period of calming down, the aura that they emitted suddenly changed. In a flash, they formed a triangle with the Chaos King and surrounded Chi-Yu and the other two in the center. The Chaos King's body emitted a layer of gray airflow. It slowly spread to the surroundings, covering the surrounding area of hundreds of square kilometers. The sun was gone, and even the scenery was gone. Only the vast land and the gray airflow could be seen. It was obvious that this was an ability of the Chaos King that was similar to a domain. The Rock Wisdom King's body had turned completely golden, as if it was made of gold. With a flip of his wrist, a long blade of green and blue appeared in his hand. The blade was transparent, and it looked a little strange. Just like Chi-Yu, the aura of his entire body was completely restrained at this moment. He stared at Chi-Yu sinisterly. Although the invisible pressure had disappeared, his eyes seemed to be the source of the pressure, locking on to Chi-Yu's aura in the air. The Deep Sea Hades Dragon King's aura felt even more terrifying. His body had turned dark purple, and his hair had turned blue. Each strand of his hair was standing upright, and ripple-like energy was constantly spreading to the surroundings. Every time it spread, it would bring about a strong change in energy, making it impossible to completely lock on to the location of his body. At the same time, his ripple-like energy was also spreading to the surroundings, just like the Chaos King. From the start, he also used a domain ability. Naturally, Chi-Yu did not know that regardless of whether it was the Chaos King or the Deep Sea Hades Dragon King, the domain that they released was actually for self-protection. Against the unknown Kirin of the four auspicious clouds, they both had the mentality of not wanting to make any mistakes. They first prepared a path of retreat for themselves before dealing with Chi-Yu. Only the Rock Wisdom King focused all his attention on attacking. Chi-Yu smiled indifferently. Why? Competing in domains? Then I'll show you what the number one domain is. 1,000, possibilities 100, changes Xian Pearl Realm technique. His right hand gently rubbed the Kirin bead on his chest, and his left hand held Wen-Ting's hand. A scorching stream of air flowed from Wen-Ting's hand into Chi-Yu's body. The two of them were connected, and in an instant, they triggered the ultimate ability of Kirin. This octatic treasures, which Wen-Ting's father called Kirin's most powerful magical treasure, immediately exploded with its strongest energy. The dark red waves almost instantly drowned everything in the surroundings. Over the past few days, Chi-Yu had been studying the 1,000 possibilities and 100 changes Xian realm technique. He realized that as long as it was not a domain that shielded energy attacks like the Silver Dragon Shield, it could be completely immune to the 1,000 possibilities and 100 changes Xian realm technique. From a certain point of view, the 1,000 possibilities and 100 changes Xian realm technique was the killer of all energy domains. Therefore, when the dark red light floated out, everything in the surroundings suddenly became quiet. Regardless of whether it was the gray stream of air emitted by the Chaos King or the ripples of the Deep Sea Hades Dragon King, they were all swallowed by the dark red light in an instant. Everything in the surroundings suddenly became dark, and the space instantly became infinitely large, yet infinitely small. Chapter 129. In the blink of an eye, the three ferocious kings had gathered together. In the face of danger, they always had a tacit understanding. Chi-Yu did not include the king of the ferocious beasts and the powerful beasts outside when he used the infinite changes of the 4 stars boundary technique. This was because he knew very well that although the infinite changes of the 4 stars boundary technique was powerful, it also depended on the user's own energy. If the enemy's energy was much stronger than his own, then the infinite changes of the 4 stars boundary technique could only last for a very limited amount of time. Therefore, what the king of the ferocious beasts could see now was a dark red light. Chi-Yu even controlled the infinite changes of the 4 stars boundary technique so that he could see everything inside from the outside, so that he would not impulsively lead the other beasts into the infinite changes of the 4 stars boundary technique. This way, he would be able to buy more time. Of course, in this strange domain, what Chi-Yu wanted the 5th ferocious beast and the other beasts to see was what he wanted them to see. Some things that he could not let them see, they would definitely not be able to see. When everything around them was completely shrouded by the dark red light, Chi-Yu's voice suddenly sounded in Shi-Rue's mind. "Leader Shi-Rue, perhaps you can't see it now, but I belong to the side of the divine beasts. I don't have much time to explain anything to you. I will now send you out in the direction of the headquarters of the Earth race. No matter what, after you leave this place, you must immediately return to the headquarters. If your great shaman is really as powerful as you say, then please help us. Otherwise, it will be the end of our fate, and this will be the last thing I can do for you." Shi-Rue did not know how to respond to Chi-Yu's words, because Chi-Yu's voice had directly appeared in his mind. Everything that had happened previously had brought him too much shock. Although he also knew that Chi-Yu was very powerful, he could never have imagined that. Chi-Yu had actually reached such a level of strength. Despite facing so many ferocious beasts, he was still able to face them without retreating. Furthermore, he had not fallen into a disadvantageous position even now. Shi-Rue's mind was in a mess, but at the same time he could feel the changes in his surroundings. His body felt light, and everything around him seemed to revolve around him, including Tyrannical Song and his black tiger. In an instant, all of them were sucked into this huge whirlpool. Then, everything around them suddenly disappeared. Their minds went blank for a moment. Chi-Yu used his thundercloud force to solve the problem of having to worry about the future as soon as the 1,000 opportunities, ever-changing Jade Pearl Realm technique was sent to the branch office. Ever since he recovered the thundercloud force, he had never stopped exploring the 1,000 changes realm of the Jade sarcasm technique. After the experience of dealing with the green phosphorus splitting tree lizard, Chi-Yu knew that the 1,000 opportunities ever-changing Jade Pearl Realm technique was his best insurance when he encountered a powerful enemy. As a result, whenever he cultivated the cloud force in his body, he would split out a portion of his attention to study the extremely complicated Qilin domain that had existed since the beginning of time. He had already figured out some of the changes within. When Ting's father had once told him, if he encountered a powerful enemy, even if he couldn't defeat them with force, he could still escape by relying on the 1,000 opportunities ever-changing Jade Pearl Realm technique. Chi-Yu sent Shi-Rue and the others away as a demonstration of this ability. In the 1,000 opportunities ever-changing Jade Pearl Realm technique, this was known as directional transmission. However, this directional transmission was only useful against enemies in the 1,000 opportunities ever-changing Jade Pearl Realm technique, or against people who weren't in charge of the formation. In the original design of Wen Ting's father, when the enemy was too powerful, this directional transmission talisman would send the enemy away in an instant, giving him more time to escape. The world itself was balanced, and any ability had its limits. The directional transmission talisman was the same. Therefore, Chi Yu didn't try to send the three fierce kings away. After all, they were too powerful, and even if he successfully sent them away, he couldn't send them too far away. Moreover, it would consume a lot of energy for Chi Yu, and there were so many ferocious beasts and fierce beast kings out there. Initially, he wanted to send Wen-Ting and Snow Girl away, but Wen-Ting and Wen-Ting were telepathically connected, and this trap was created by Wen-Ting's father. It was just that Wen-Ting herself didn't agree, so there was nothing Chi Yu could do about it. As for Snow Girl, it was even simpler. When Chi Yu had just used the 1,000 opportunities, ever-changing Jade Pearl Realm technique, Snow Girl's body had already changed. In the face of so many enemies, Snow Girl was very clear that her strength was absolutely not enough, and it was impossible for her to contend against so many enemies. If she joined the battle, it would only cause trouble for Chi Yu and Wen-Ting. Therefore, when Chi Yu's 1,000 opportunities, ever-changing Jade Pearl Realm technique couldn't be used, she immediately condensed all her energy, and at the same time, activated an ability that Chi Yu and Wen-Ting had never seen or even heard of. That was shape-shifting. The so-called shape-shifting was a special ability that could instantly change one's form, but didn't change one's energy. Under certain circumstances, it had a miraculous effect, and was an ability that only people with special abilities like Snow Girl could have. Even if Chi Yu had reached the level of Cloudless, he still wouldn't be able to do it. At this time, Snow Girl's body had completely disappeared, and in the palm of Chi Yu's left hand, there was an additional needle. It was 8 inches long, thick in the middle, and extremely sharp at both ends. It was filled with the highly condensed ice energy of Snow Girl. In a sense, such an ice needle was almost indestructible. Chi Yu didn't know that at this time, Snow Girl had already become his most powerful weapon. Even Chi Yu didn't know how much power the ice needle formed from Snow Girl's shape-shifting could actually exert. Sending Shirwei and the others away did not consume too much of Chi Yu's energy. After all, it was impossible for Shirwei and the others to resist being sent away by Chi Yu. In their own situation, there would not be a conflict of energy between them. At this time, not only did Chi Yu send them away, but he also recalled the deep-sea nether snake back into his body. The deep-sea nether snake's body was too big, and in the face of so many strong enemies, Chi Yu didn't want its body to become a target. Therefore, there were only 5 people in the 1,000 Changes Xuanji realm technique: Chi Yu, Wen-Ting, and the 3 shaving backrust. They were vigilantly watching the 3 fierce kings. With a smile, Chi Yu and Wen-Ting appeared out of thin air 100 meters away from the 3 fierce kings. "How is it? What do you think of my realm?" Chi Yu looked mockingly at the 3 fierce kings. At the very least, these 3 fellows had yet to take any action. Their intelligence was naturally incomparable to the splitting tree lizard from back then. Faced with this sudden change, in the face of the sudden change, they immediately responded by remaining unchanged and waited quietly. This was the second time that Chi Yu had truly used the 1,000 Changes Xuanji realm technique. This time, his enemies were much stronger than the first time. However, Chi Yu was also stronger than before. More importantly, his understanding of the 1,000 Changes Xuanji realm technique was far from what it was back then. If Chi Yu had this ability back then, how could he have been sent to this era by the reincarnation fruit that was triggered by the cracking tree Lucid? The great rock Wisdom King snorted coldly. "Do you think that such a realm can control us?" Chi Yu smiled and said, "I have never thought that way. However, I really want to talk to the 3 of you." The Chaos King said in a shrill voice, "Talk? What is there to talk about? Mo Fei, are you already at the end of your rope?" Chi Yu said without batting an eyelid, "We haven't even made a move. What do you mean by at the end of my rope?" "I think there is nothing wrong with us having an exchange with the 3 powerful fierce beasts. In my realm, you don't need to worry at all. At least, I haven't attacked you yet. This is enough to show my sincerity." The deep-sea Hades Dragon King said in a low voice, "What do I want to talk about?" Chi Yu smiled indifferently. It's very simple. It's what I said earlier. Could it be that with your strength, you're willing to submit to someone else? If you are willing, I can help you regain the power and status that you deserve. I wonder if the three kings have this intention? The great rock wisdom king snorted coldly and said, "You don't need to sow discord here. This is useless to us. Are you trying to incite us fierce beasts to kill each other to weaken our strength? Dream on. Our loyalty to the king is absolute." Chi Jiao snorted disdainfully and said, "Then I'll give you 2 words. Stupid." The great rock wisdom king said angrily, "What did you say?" Chi Yu smiled indifferently and said, "There is one thing I can tell you first. You can rest assured. In my realm, no sound can be transmitted. Your king can't hear it at all. Even if you are loyal to him, will he really believe you?" The Chaos King said, "Why not? We are the most loyal subordinates of the king." Chi Jiao chuckled and said, "I'm afraid even you can't fool yourself with this. If he really believed you, he wouldn't have sent you out to die. Why didn't he come to fight me himself? Why did he send you out instead?" Chi Jiao's words stumped the 3 ferocious kings. Just as Chi Yu expected, the 3 ferocious kings' respect for the ferocious beast king wasn't that sincere. Looking at each other, the deep-sea nether dragon king said, "No matter what, this is an internal matter of us ferocious beasts. It's impossible for you to sow discord between us. Moreover, there are dozens of ferocious beast experts outside. Do you think you can leave this place just because you can persuade the 3 of us? Dream on." Chi Yu smiled indifferently and said, "I never expect anything. Since you are so stubborn, then let's see who's the real deal. However, many of the ferocious beasts outside are also your subordinates. I'm afraid they will listen to the ferocious beast king's commands completely. Let me remind you one last time. If the ferocious beast king suddenly dies, what do you think the other ferocious beasts will do?" Ha! Laughing heartily, Chi Yu brought Wenting and disappeared before the 3 ferocious kings once again. The 3 ferocious kings didn't move. In their hearts, they were carefully considering Chi Yu's words. Yes, if the ferocious beast king suddenly died, then what would happen to everything? Other than the ferocious beast king, including the 3 of them, the strength of the other experts in the ferocious beast world was about the same. It was hard to say who would become the new ferocious beast king. However, was it really that simple? No one knew better than them just how powerful the ferocious beast king was. Just as they were thinking, Chi Yu and Wenting appeared once again. This time, they appeared in a different direction. Just as the 3 ferocious kings thought that Chi Yu was going to say something, they suddenly saw that Chi Yu's body had changed. The fiery red Kirin armor appeared out of nowhere and covered his original Kirin armor. Just as the 3 ferocious kings were shocked, Chi Yu's attack had already appeared. Fiery hell. The light in Chi Yu's eyes became unusually cold. An enormous fire thundercloud force floated out, and instantly the entire 4 stars realm technique was completely covered in raging flames. In an instant, all the 3 ferocious kings could see was a sea of raging flames. Of course, this was not the true Kirin True Fire. It was just that under the amplification of the 4 stars realm technique and the effects of the 4 stars realm technique, the 3 ferocious kings could see that the flames had completely filled the entire space. Chi Yu had chosen to use the fire thundercloud force after careful consideration. The Chaos King's attribute was very special, and he did not know what could restrain it. The Rock King's attribute was unexpectedly different from that of the winged rock eagle. Judging from his weapon, it was actually leaning towards the attributes of metal and ice. Needless to say, the deep-sea abyssal dragon king was definitely of the water attribute. Under such special circumstances, using the fire thundercloud force was naturally the best method. The sudden appearance of a large amount of Kirin True Fire immediately made the 3 ferocious kings nervous. Gray mist erupted from the Chaos King's body and enveloped his body. The Rock King swung the long blade in his hand, and the greenish-blue blade naturally formed a barrier under the illumination of the golden light, protecting his body. The deep-sea Abyssal Dragon King's action was even simpler. He opened his mouth, and a wave of purple water ripples directly isolated the Kirin True Fire. For a moment, the three ferocious kings each displayed their own abilities and defended against the attack of the fiery hell. Sensing the changes in the energy of the three ferocious kings, Chiyu could not help but be secretly shocked. The ability of the Kirin True Fire had been enhanced to its limit under the amplification of Kirin Red. Moreover, he had already reached the 6-cloud level and had undergone the second stage of transformation. Even with so many enhancements, the Kirin True Fire was still unable to pose any threat to the three ferocious kings. This showed how powerful they were. Amidst the flashes of light, Chiyu shouted in a low voice, "Fire change." The Kirin True Fire instantly changed during the condensation. At this moment, his highly condensed thundercloud force immediately displayed its unique offensive power. Although the overall energy was not as strong as the three ferocious kings, it was similar to the first time he fought with Snow Girl. Because of the excessive condensation of the fire thundercloud force, when it collided with the opponent's attack, the instantaneous explosive power made up for the lack of offensive power. At the same time, the three ferocious kings felt the crazy bombardment of the Kirin True Fire from the front. In the midst of the explosion, it seemed as if it was going to completely engulf their bodies. They hurriedly concentrated their defense in front of their bodies. At this moment, they still could not understand the mystery of the 1,000 changes of the 4 stars realm technique. Therefore, it was better for them to protect their bodies first. However, when they mainly concentrated their defense in front of their chest, suddenly, the three ferocious kings were shocked to find that the defense next to them had disappeared. Their back-to-back defense was suddenly broken. At the same time, they saw that the other 2 ferocious kings were a few hundred meters away from them. At this moment, the attack of the Kirin True Fire that appeared in front of them suddenly changed to their backs. In an instant, a tyrannical attack was launched from their backs. 3 angry roars sounded almost at the same time. Although the 3 ferocious kings were powerful, under the circumstances where they used the wrong strength and were heavily bombarded by Chi-Yu's concentrated Kirin True Fire, it was definitely not a good feeling. Almost at the same time, they let out a muffled groan. The energy of the 3 ferocious kings' defense was instantly raised to the limit. Although they did not really suffer any real damage, they broke out in a cold sweat. They were extremely puzzled. Why did the 3 of them suddenly separate from each other when they were originally together? They could not help but suspect the other 2 ferocious kings. The 3 ferocious kings had always been scheming against each other. Under such circumstances, they all suspected that the other 2 ferocious kings wanted to take the opportunity to destroy them. For a moment, their original alliance was immediately broken. Under the effect of selfishness, they immediately turned into individual battles and did not return to the same group. In fact, this was all caused by Chiyu. Indeed, the defensive power of the 3 ferocious kings, who had their backs against each other in a triangular formation, was very difficult to break, not to mention Chiyu. Even a Kirin at full strength would find it difficult to break through. However, within the 1,000 changes of the 4 stars domain technique, many impossible things could become possible. When Chiyu launched his attack, he controlled his 1,000 changes of the 4 stars domain technique to suddenly enlarge the tiny space between the 3 ferocious kings and immediately widen the distance between the 3 ferocious kings. Then he forcibly controlled his Kirin True Fire to teleport and launched an attack from the back of the 3 ferocious kings. On the surface, it seemed that Chiyu had obtained an absolute advantage. However, deep down, he was very clear that the 3 ferocious kings were too powerful. Even if they did not have the ability to fight back and allowed him to attack freely, it would still be a very difficult task to catch up to them. In the face of absolute power, techniques might be able to gain some advantages, but it was extremely difficult to achieve the final victory. The 1,000 changes of the 4 stars domain technique was indeed amazing, but at the same time it consumed an extremely large amount of thundercloud force, especially when it was trapping 3 super ferocious beasts of this level. Qi Yu could clearly feel that his thundercloud force of the 6 clouds realm was also rapidly depleting, and even he did not know how long he could last. If the 3 enemies were all about the same strength as Qi Yu, then he could still use the 1,000 changes of the 4 stars domain technique to separate and defeat them one by one. However, the absolute strength of the 3 ferocious kings was too strong. With more than 20,000 years of cultivation, it was not so easy to deal with them. Idiots, what are the 3 of you doing? Join forces and destroy this domain of his first. The voice of the ferocious Beast King was suddenly transmitted into the 1,000 changes of the 4 stars domain technique without warning, causing the 3 ferocious kings to be shocked at the same time. Qi Yu was even more shocked. During his battle with the 3 ferocious kings, he had been using the 1,000 changes of the 4 stars domain technique to create illusions for the ferocious Beast King outside. However, he did not expect the ferocious Beast King's mental strength to be strong enough to transmit his voice into his domain. This time, Qi Yu felt a strong sense of danger. At this critical juncture, Qi Yu's mind was completely clear and the thundercloud force in his body was operating at full speed, completely in line with the 1,000 changes of the 4 stars domain technique. The vision of the 3 ferocious kings turned black at the same time, and they instantly lost track of the other 2 ferocious kings. However, after receiving the guidance of the ferocious Beast King, who was a bystander, they no longer hesitated. Almost at the same time, the 3 ferocious kings raised their energy with all their might and launched an attack toward the 1,000 changes of the 4 stars domain technique. This was because they were very clear that no matter what kind of domain it was, it had a certain tolerance towards energy. Once the boundary was broken, regardless of the power of the domain, it would be directly broken. Of course, this method of breaking the domain consumed a lot of energy, but given the current situation, this was the only way they could leave this place that made them feel somewhat panicked. A huge purple energy dragon condensed around the body of the deep-sea netherworld dragon king. It was completely formed from the powerful water energy of his body, and with the energy of the NEI pill as its core, it exploded with his strongest attack. After all, in his heart he had a very high opinion of Qi Yu and was afraid that he would not be able to achieve the desired effect if he did not put in enough effort. The Great Rock Wisdom King and the Chaos King did the same thing. The long blade in the Great Rock Wisdom King's hand shattered instantly, and the greenish-blue blade fragments turned completely golden. Under the effect of the energy in his body, each fragment was like a missile, exploding in all directions at the same time. Meanwhile, the Chaos King directly transformed into his own body. His super-huge body was like a balloon, shooting out thousands of gray air currents at the same time, bombarding the surroundings at the same time, indiscriminately bombarding the 1,000 changes of the Big Dipper realm technique. Qi Yu was very calm at this moment. In fact, he had been building up momentum for himself, and this was the effect he wanted. The 3 fierce kings could not see him and Wen Ting, but he and Wen Ting could clearly see what the 3 fierce kings were doing. The 2 of them looked at each other, and Wen Ting smiled at Qi Yu and nodded gently. Then the huge energy in Wen Ting's body surged crazily into Qi Yu's body like a tidal wave, and Qi Yu's thundercloud force completely erupted at the same time. He raised his right arm high, and the black, silver, and red light condensed into a huge light pillar that shot into the sky. While the 1,000 changes of the Big Dipper realm technique was being destroyed by the 3 fierce kings, Qi Yu had raised it to the limit, and this was also the absolute limit of what he could do at the moment. The incomparably huge thundercloud force was completely condensed in this light pillar, and at this moment, Qi Yu completely unleashed the 1,000 changes of the Big Dipper realm technique. The 3 fierce kings could not see the light pillar that shot into the sky, and at this moment they could clearly feel that the energy within the 1,000 changes of the Big Dipper realm technique had begun to fluctuate violently, and the surrounding dark red space surged continuously like waves. Sensing this situation, they thought that the 1,000 changes of the Big Dipper realm technique was about to be broken, and immediately increased the output of their energy without hesitation, attempting to destroy this energy domain that was bothering them in one go. At this moment, Wen-Ting had already hugged Chi-Yu's body from behind, and she did not hold back the slightest bit of energy towards Chi-Yu. The Kirin pearl in front of Chi-Yu's chest erupted with an unprecedentedly bright light, and his Kirin arm trembled slightly because of the excessive energy. Lin Bing Do Jia Jia Zhen Lai. Chi-Yu was currently at the 6th cloud level, and originally he could only use the first 6 words of the 9 syllables mantra. But with the help of Wen-Ting's energy, he was actually able to shout out the 7th word. When the 9 syllables mantra left his mouth, the 1,000 changes of the Big Dipper realm technique finally began to operate according to Chi-Yu's plan. At this moment, whether it was the Deep Sea Hades Dragon King's Purple Dragon, the Rock Wisdom King's Ice Blade, or the Chaos King's Chaotic Chi, at this moment, all of them frantically gathered towards the 3-colored light pillar that was brought out from Chi-Yu's right fist. Relying on the wonders of the 1,000 changes of the Big Dipper realm technique and all the energy of Chi-Yu and Wen-Ting, they actually led the energy of the 3 fierce kings to change direction, or rather, under the effect of the 1,000 changes of the Big Dipper realm technique, their energy was instantly transferred. That was the energy of 3 humanoid ferocious beasts with more than 20,000 years of cultivation. There was probably no one in this world who would dare to say that they could transfer their energy in such a manner. Transferring and defending were completely different, and the amount of energy consumed and control required was too much. In particular, the consumption of mental strength was definitely an astronomical figure. However, after all, Chi-Yu and Wen-Ting managed to do it. With the help of the origin of nature and Kirin's own mental strength, Chi-Yu finally managed to do it with the help of the 1,000 changes of the Big Dipper realm technique. With a loud bang, the 1,000 changes of the Big Dipper realm technique turned into countless dark red light spots and floated away. The 3 ominous kings felt their eyes light up at the same time, and everything returned to normal. However, before they could rejoice, they were shocked to find that the 3 people from the creation's network had gathered together. They were all leaning against each other, and their energy was flowing in one direction. The purple dragon, the golden ice blade fragments, and the huge amount of chaotic chi were all shooting in one direction. And the destination of that direction was none other than the ferocious beast king that they were most afraid of. The expressions of all the other ferocious beasts changed when they sensed the joint attack of the 3 great ferocious kings. The combined power of the 3 great ferocious kings was far too powerful, and even space itself seemed to be torn apart by them. Black cracks appeared out of nowhere in mid-air, bringing with them a powerful suction force. The king of the ferocious beasts did not even have the chance to dodge at this moment. Almost at the instant when the 4 stars domain technique shattered, the enormous power of the combined attack of the 3 great ferocious kings had already reached him. Chi-Yu and Wen-Ting were thousands of meters away. This was originally their best chance to escape, but their energy had already been exhausted. At this moment, they could only rely on Chi-Yu's rapid absorption of the energy molecules in the air to support the energy consumption of his Kirin transformation, so that they would not fall from the sky. The outcome that Chi-Yu had meticulously planned had finally appeared. At this moment, the situation had become that the 3 ominous kings had concentrated all their strength to launch a sneak attack on the ferocious Beast King. This was what Chi-Yu wanted. He did not know what the outcome would be, but he was looking forward to it in his heart. Whether the 3 ominous kings destroyed the ferocious Beast King, or both sides suffered, to Chi-Yu it would be very satisfactory. As long as the ferocious Beast King was no longer there, their chances of survival would be greatly increased. When the ferocious Beast King was suddenly faced with such a powerful attack, He immediately displayed the strength of the strongest in the ferocious beast world. His reaction speed alone was enough to make any ancient giant beast admire him. In a few milliseconds, the ferocious Beast King's body changed into several different positions. He had no possibility of dodging. His aura had already been completely locked on by the energy in front of him. However, he could still retreat. At the moment of crisis, the 4 young ferocious beasts closest to the ferocious Beast King were forcibly moved in front of him. With a loud bang, they turned into powder. However, it was also in this short period of time that the ferocious Beast King's body had undergone earth-shattering changes. He was still in his original form, but in an instant his body had actually expanded to 100 meters tall. 2 giant horns drilled out from both sides of his head. At the same time, his enlarged hands clasped together in front of his body and blasted out with all his might. A brownish-yellow energy, with a diameter no smaller than the combined attack of the 3 ominous kings, forcibly resisted the attacks of the 3 ominous kings. At this moment, the 3 ominous kings had realized that their attack target was not right. They had already stopped adding energy to their bodies. Under this situation, the ferocious Beast King's energy had exploded. Boom!